Hopefully this works for everybody. Get everything booted up. Surely. Okay, perfect. And give it a second while everybody funnels in. I need to grab a drink. I literally just got back from the airport. Not joking, about 3 minutes ago. So I kind of messed up the timing and posted an hour earlier than I should have. So yeah, but you know, I'm a man of my word. So I want to make sure I could get in and stream for everybody as soon as I possibly could. Now that there's probably a lot people want covered, so. Right. Yeah, appreciate it, Cameron. Appreciate it, Pedro. It was a good run. Unfortunately, did not make it all the way, but if y'all watched what happened to me in top four, it was just not meant to be. So, what can you do? Okay, perfect. Stuff is starting to load up now. But gives people time to funnel in while I get everything set up, which is nice. So. And it's been a little bit since we streamed, but you can see what we got here. Oh my god, the rebound had 1,000 people. I guess it kind of makes sense. Everybody who didn't end up playing, and the Parisian had 1,500. Crazy. All right. Okay, these don't actually have deck lists, really. Interesting. It's not really an info there, then. All right. Let me grab my handy dandy pieces of paper. I had kind of a blessed tournament run, I will admit. Oh no, did they fall out? Oh no. Yeah, okay. But this time around, I kept using our life pad notes for all my scorecards and stuff, so I can easily reference them. Um, yeah, I wanted to win it all too, but I knew it was like kind of a pipe dream on set. The deck has its inconsistencies for sure, and it's not quite as powerful as everything else. So, I mean, it's certainly a good deck. Don't get me wrong, but at the highest level, people know how to punish me a little bit harder. So, but yeah, overall, obviously a fantastic event for me and us in general. Anton got his bear again, and he had definitely one of the worst unfortunate things that happened to us. Both of us did really. For him to get the pair down in the final round, and then his opponent was unable to draw with him. So he had to play, and then it was into a really bad matchup, being Rek'Sai. For any Aurora deck, it's a bad matchup. So Yeah, he ended up losing, unfortunately. So he wasn't able to make top 8 with me. That would have been absurd if the bird had made it, or the bear had made it, rather. But, yeah. Let me actually... Let me try turning on the light. I know it's a little dark in here. See if this helps at all. I know video has like an artificial light thing too, but I feel like it'll maybe look weird. Okay. Sorry for the scuffed stream setup, but just getting stuff organized. So much fun. I almost flipped my table seeing those top decks and missed 2 drops. Yeah. That was yes, that was absurd. At the very least, everybody came up to me and was like, "Dude, what just happened to you?" And I was like, "You tell me." So at least everyone was able to see that that one not my fault. Nothing we could have done on that one. What's up, Dr. Marsh? Appreciate all the support, everybody. Do I have this file on Discord, like the dreaming tree that I used, or what? I think that one thing that we're kind of noting and seeing from this event, and we'll kind of cover it, which is no offense to everybody here, but it's Ripbound is definitely in a position right now where it's a very skill intensive game, and yeah, we're seeing a lot of the top players able to consistently perform even when they're not in the top most of top tier decks, right? And I would say even when it comes to Aurelia, I think she's in kind of an awkward spot where there aren't too many top high level players that are playing her, right? And obviously the performance has been apparent of that. I do still think Aurelia is a very good deck, and should we have some top level performers on it, we could see some consistent deep runs. But Aurelia also has an inconsistency problem, so just being that like when you have the Stellacorn, you're nuts, and when you don't have the Stellacorn, your deck's kind of mid. So um, but yeah, the 8 different legends in top was really cool. Appreciate it, Lelouch. Yeah, well, I'm definitely planning on updating the set guide here either this week or, well, ideally I'll get to it this week because I'm actually moving back home after Hartford. I literally like come back. I think I get 1 day's break and then I'm driving back home from San Antonio back to Tampa. So I'm gonna try and get this set guide updated this week before Hartford so I can at least release it on, I'll probably be like the Friday of Hartford. Is my current plan to try and release it. So, because I definitely want to help people out with that. So, but yeah, the other question I saw just as I'm doing some Q&A while people get in here, what do you think it is missing for LeBlanc? Oh, open camera. Okay, perfect. Camera freezing. Oh, okay, perfect. LeBlanc has a few matchups that are just kind of difficult, especially some of the popular ones. Diana being the primary one right now that's kind of holding her back. I think both Diana and Annie are like really tough matchups. She's got a pretty good matchup into almost everything else, but so long as like you end up running into a Diana or a LeBlanc at some point, or a Diana or an Annie at some point, you're gonna be cooked. Just the infinite Starcross decks are just a little bit too much for her to handle. And even in the more aggressive decks, they're just gonna get cooked by like Gust and such. So yeah, Anton talked about it. He released a short guide with our friend Lothar, so you guys can check it out on his channel. I think he just did a deck profile, and then he said that he's considering doing like a video or a free guide for Volley. But obviously, with Volley rotating soon, he doesn't want to charge people for the guide. So, granted, you can still play it at a local level, so there still will be some merit to it. But I don't think Anton believes the deck is so powerful that it's worth playing over other Aurora decks. It's just doing something a little bit unique in the Aurora field where you're like playing a large unit every turn until you eventually play the Aurora and then hope that that's enough to ride. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So, is Pike better than Draven? No. Draven is still pretty good, in my opinion. I think that's the biggest issue that we've kind of seen out of that color combination is just the Aurora matchup. I think Pike maybe has a better Aurora matchup, but I think if you build Draven well, then it's probably still fine, right? Oh, the paper one. Yeah, we will have these. I think we'll have these life pads again for Hartford if anyone's showing up. Um, we ordered another set of them. They're a bit more expensive this time, but still good. Yeah. Have to do it again for previous season. Yes, I know. That's crazy. 46% spells or gusts doesn't help in Starcross, yeah. Isn't the so technically you can play all of the set one legends forever, but the best ofs and metal prize wall cards are only available for 3 sets. So as soon as set 4 comes out, all the set one legends rotate, so you can still play them, but you will not be able to get best of prizing for those legends anymore. So where can we order them? We're working on finding a shipping solution for them. There haven't something that we wanted to ship yet. They're just kind of things that we've handed out. So, but we will get back to you on that maybe by next week's stream. Yeah, I want to be able to get these out to especially everyone who's been supporting us. So we're planning on having some sort of solution for it, but give us a little bit of a during the time after Hartford, we'll actually have a bunch of time to kind of handle a bunch of the administrative stuff like that to be able to get some more shipping solutions and all that sort of stuff to help people out. So, yeah, rotation is set 10, I believe, is what people have been saying. I think it's the way that they worded it was that a set is legal for 2 years. So, whatever year it's printed, and then the next year that it's printed, and then it rotates after that, right? So, and I think set one's the exception because technically released in November, but it's counting as a 2026 release. So it'll rotate at the same time as like sets 1 through 5. I believe is what was announced. It was very early on when they announced how rotation works, though. So, yeah. So, 2027 is the first rotation. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry about the LeBlanc playmat. We outsourced to a different company and they were supposed to handle it all and they've been having issues. I think they also were kind of in the middle of like transitioning everything from one location to another. So, um, yeah, we're a little disappointed with them, but they're trying their best. There's a good friend of ours who owns the company and is doing all that. So, um, yeah, still shout out to them. They're just working through it. So. But I greatly apologize for everybody. So, yeah, I think now at this point, I can start getting into some of it. We can either look at deck recap or I can do my tournament recap first. I don't know how much there is exactly to go through, but I guess I can just because that's nice. They put me as third on Rift Deck, so getting a third place run, not top 4, according to Rift Decks over here. I'm a top 3. I got third place, so we got to make that distinction. I think it technically is true because it defaults based on whatever your placement was in top 8, and I had a better placement than Diwali. So I was talking to Diwali at the time. We were like, "There's a timeline where the two of us meet in the finals because we were both on opposite sides of the bracket, which would have been really cool. Unfortunately, the mice guys were able to do it instead, but." What can you do? So, yeah, on the actual tournament day, we were joking that my early tournament bracket was very easy, and I did get very fortunate with my matchups. Y'all are gonna laugh about some of my early matchups, just in terms of how lucky I got. But round 2 was against Jinx, so let me actually see if there's a way I can do this better. Let me pull up Notepad++, and I can type this out for people so they can follow. This won't be the prettiest, but it'll get the job done. Let's see. Do not want a display capture. I want a window capture. Boom. Just like that technology, baby. So starting round one, obviously was a bye. This is just for my own personal notes, but I got a bye from winning a bunch of skirmishes, so most of us don't end up having to play round one at this point, which I think is a little bit of a problem that they're trying to work on in general. But yeah, for now, a lot of us have buys for this first season, and it's just kind of the way of these things. So um, round two, yeah, usually I would have the spreadsheet that Manch has pulled up. Actually, I'm curious if he ended up making it for this already. I know he had a, but I do not know where Manch is at. He's usually my goat that carries me on all this sort of stuff. Let's see. Something you see? Yeah, I don't know if he's made one for Utrecht yet. So for now we have this. My round two was actually against a Jinx player. So starting off with the early rounds, I got very fortunate. Oh yeah, there's the graphic that we tweeted out. That's a good call. It at least covers the day one, and my day two is not as interesting. So let's do that. Just gotta swap to my work Twitter. Yeah, we got fortunately yes, perfect. Good call. So yeah, round one bye. Round two was against Jinx. Relatively newer player on Jinx, and obviously it's just a best of deck. So, one this is one thing they always talk about is that you will often get these early rounds that aren't too difficult, just based on how things go. So, just mathematically, even the top decks only have like a 20% play rate or something like that, right? So going to round two, you're like 80% to play into one of these random decks. And, most of my teammates actually got pretty unlucky in the first round playing against like Anton lost to an Azir in round one before going on his crazy run. So, yeah. After that, I played against a Victor who was on like a very cool token based strategy using like Chakram Dancers and Sorakas and stuff like that, which ended up being pretty decent against me, but I was just able to hold him out, and Sabotage was kind of a house against them just because he was very reliant on Grand Stratagem, and I was able to just sabo it out. Yeah, Flash with Excel. Oh, wait. Let's see. Then after that was Aurelia. Obviously, Aurelia is one of the top decks, and I was fortunately able to beat it. I had like some really, really tough lines that I had to go for. I had one where like the Aurelia was a GA, and he had one energy up, and I was like, if he has an On Guard or a Defiant Dance or a Defy here, I lose, but I ran the challenge on it. Just because I kind of had a soul read at some point that he didn't have it, and if I just let him untap, I was probably losing anyways. So I think that's one skill, as I'll go into my day two recap, that I think I made a mistake on. That's really difficult for people is they think a little bit too much in generalizations, and instead of finding the avenue to win, they play with too much fear and then create situations where they lose to like the same cards or even more likely things. So that was the biggest note I had against that Aurelia players. They were pretty good. It literally just got to a point they had like two or three cards in hand, and I had a challenge, and they had a 7 Might Aurelia sitting in base, and I had an 8 Might set. I was like, well, either I win the game here, I lose the game here, and I played it and went on the spot because I was able to kill the Aurelia, and he just had nothing but a Scuttle Crab after that, so it was easy enough to hold it out and win. So that's definitely a skill that's kind of difficult for people, and once I get into my day two recap, I'll talk about I think a mistake that I made that maybe potentially could have made the difference, but I'm not entirely sure. Um, so after that was a Lee Sin. It was Lee Sin Aurora, so it was a little bit scarier, just because Aurora decks are like there's not that big of a difference between Lee Sin and Yi when it comes to the Aurora strategies. Um, so I do think obviously Yi is much better, but still a very similar deck. And if it rides the Aurora, it wins. If it doesn't, then I win. So it was an interesting match. Game one, I was just able to sabo him and took the Aurora, and he never drew a second one. So we had some back and forth, but eventually just like got to 12 energy, cast a an Elder Dragon, and then I was able to play a Faithful from hand. Untapped it with First Mate, and I sent it in um, or I buffed it with Arena Bar. I first mated it, and I sent it in with the set, so it was exactly 10 might to 10 might, and it was tapped out, so I was able to kill the Elder Dragon immediately, and kind of hit him with a surprise factor out of it because I had First Mate plus Faithful in hand, and that kind of sealed the game. And then yeah, game two, I think he just never ended up hitting Aurora. I had an Ash as well, but when I played the Ash, he didn't have the Aurora anyways, so it just ended up being a game where he just played a bunch of middling units like Dead Blooms and Biomas and stuff, and that's easy enough for my deck to handle. After that was Jibs on Jin, who actually won the best of Jin, which is awesome because he's a good friend of the channel. So I was super excited for him to get that, and then I felt really bad. I was at like 5-0 playing against the Jin guy. I was like, oh well, obviously Jin's an insane matchup for set. They're just all targeted removal, and my deck just has his Zanies every turn. The only thing that I will say that's a little bit annoying about the Jin matchup is that on their pop off turn they can kind of double kill your stuff because they get the 4 extra runes. So there's like times they can like double singularity you, whereas no other deck would really be able to do that, and that can be enough to completely wipe the board. So he did actually take a game off of me, where I think I didn't play around that possibility enough, and yeah, eventually he just ran me out of units. It was also on my Valley game, so I didn't have any access to any additional card draw, which really hurt. Um, but yeah, then once game three came around, I just played it a little bit slower, and the deck was not really able to keep up, right? Uh, yeah. So you can use Rift Yummies to look at your matches. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can do that. Let's see. Is this Leo? Player. Oh, is this still on Leo? Okay. Utrecht. Let's see. So I can go to Utrecht here. Go to this website is also super helpful. So yeah, this was what the best of race ended up looking like. There was a point where I was like kind of scared, actually. I think when I lost in round 9, spoilers as we get to it. Okay, this is cool. Yeah, this is perfect. Appreciate chat being the more technologically advanced for me on this. Yeah, show me the best way to do it. Oh, we have Manch's spreadsheet. Oh, perfect, Isa. Thank you. Manch's spreadsheet is also fantastic because it shows pretty much everything we ever need. My true goat. Is there a guide on how you take notes in the game? I can turn up my mic. Right now I only have my mic. I mean, I'm listening to music, but I don't know if people want to listen to my music as well. I figure people can just put it on their own Spotify while listening to me. Yeah, makes it a little bit easier to balance. Let's see. Look up. Is this gonna let me edit this or? Okay, I need to make a copy. Yeah, sorry. I wish I had all this stuff pulled up beforehand before I started the stream, but literally touched down and ended up coming in. Okay. needing to start to get on time. CTCG call. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so this Lee Sin player, I also felt like extra bad because after me, they paired into, I think, Anton, and then lost that match as well. So they just had a rough time of it. But yeah, Jibs actually had a crazy tear. He was 5-0, lost to me, and then ended up 10-3 on Jin, which is absurd. 10-3 is a monstrous record on a deck like Jin. So props to Jibs. Then I played against Skonkra in round 7, who is one of the Annie goats, always up there with Priz, just usually like a little bit short either on tiebreakers or a point or two. Um, so she's a great player. Shout out to Gonkra. Fortunately for me, she did not really know the matchup as well as obviously I did, having played against Priz and stuff. So I'm super used to that matchup. And then my last round was against Ezreal, which was not too bad. Yeah, it was linked in our Twitch chat, so you can make a copy of it if you'd like. Yeah, 10-3 Gen is crazy. Here's the link to this doc as well. I think if you want to edit it and play around with it, you gotta make a copy. But yeah, Mensch does all this in our Discord, so yeah, it's great. So yeah, I actually ended up 8-0 on day 1. There wasn't too much to say about the Ezreal match. I 2-0'd him relatively quickly. It was one of those things where he like got me pretty low on resources, and I think both games I had maybe like 1 or 2 cards left while I was pushing for lethal, but the Ezreal deck just doesn't really have enough to stop me from pushing for lethal in all of my turns. So the Vise ended up coming in clutch in this game just as a way to like as soon as he committed all of his resources to stopping a push, Vi just came in and it was enough to mop up an entire board. So same with Rengars. Rengars were like amazing the entire day. So um, yeah, so it was overall pretty good. Then round 9 obviously was against Alan on Cam. I think this was like the one round where I maybe could have made a different line. I think games 1 and 2 were pretty tight. Game 3, I kind of like spooked myself and never thought it. I knew that he was going to play a Star-Crossed on my Vi, but I kind of wanted him to do that anyways, which is why I had like a line where I went for the hold on the Abandoned Hall, and then I punched first my Vi twice and he Star-Crossed it, which is something I kind of wanted him to do anyways, but it didn't end up working out in the end because he had enough to like exactly, I think he exactly cleared my other side by 1 might, which was really sad, but it was like a pretty simple 1 miter, I think, because he just ended up having to like smoke screen it or something like that to get over it. So it was really tough. But had I played the punch first onto the first mate, I think I could have won that. It was just one of those things where he drew a card off of a Stupefy, so I started to panic and I was like, well, shit, if he has the if he drew the gust in this spot, then I'm kind of cooked. But I should have realized that like it was something I couldn't have played around anyways. And I probably should just punch first the first mate. And I don't know if it would have made the difference in this match, but it might have. So yeah, that was my big error in that match. But outside of that, I think I played it pretty cleanly. So there wasn't really much I noted. So yeah, that was yeah, I'll get to my deck list afterwards and we can go through that. After that, I played against 2 Yees back to back. The round 10 one was a little bit closer. Actually, let me go to my handy dandy pieces of paper notes here. Let's see, 9, 10. Oh, I didn't actually take notes on round 10 for some reason. I must have lost a piece of paper. Anyways, round 10 was a little bit closer. I think that one ended up actually going to game 3. Round 11, I think he was actually, well, based on record, he was definitely a better player. But he made like one crucial error where he forgot to play around Call to Glory in game 2. He went for like a breaking line, and I was able to get over with Call to Glory. And he like punch first buffed his Yi, went in onto a battlefield, and I was able to call the glory of my set to get it so that it traded because there was a buff off of a Cythria, and traded rather than eating my set because his plan was to punch first. He punched first, on guarded his Yi, and then his plan was to charm it in. But then I played the Call to Glory from hand, and he didn't have the Defy, so I just ate his Yi, and basically just traded a Call to Glory for his punch first, his on guard, and his Yi. And he also missed a 2-drop on that turn, so like that game 2 was just a wash, and he died pretty quickly. So um, yeah, Rengar's best set 3 card. I can agree with that. Oh, Starcross is probably the best set 3 card if we're being real. Or maybe if we want to be like objective, Soul Sword is like the best set 3 card, but um yeah. Either way. And then the last one was against Prismat. This was my winning in, and yeah, I was able to this is one that maybe I'll do like a VOD review of later because it was kind of an interesting game. He did end up making a few mistakes, so I told him I would do like a VOD review with him if he wanted to go over it. But I actually missed a turn 1 play going second and won game 1. He also had a abandon for my showstopper as well, which was like the only other way that you can kind of catch up is if you have like Fiora plus showstopper, which I did at least, even though I missed a turn 1 play. But yeah, he abandoned it, so I was infinitely far behind. Honestly, the weirdest thing was that he went for like a hold line that he really didn't need to, so it was very easy for me to break based on my hands. One thing I always talk about in Riftbound in general, and I think that was like a big learning lesson for that is teachable from the match, is whenever your opponent has like a bad early start, you'll have to recognize that like they have something in hand, right? They always have whatever the number of cards they are. It's not like Magic or Pokemon where they can be like energy or lands or something like that. Every card that your opponent has something in their hand every single time. So I think Priz like kind of didn't respect the combination of cards I could have had, but he should have recognized that my hand had to be pretty loaded once I got into the late for breaking power because I missed a turn 1 play, right? So he knew that I had 5 cards in my hand in my opener that didn't have the ability to be played on turn 1. So there's no 2-drops, there's no weird spells or arena bars or anything like that. So that was like the biggest thing for sure that I think really maybe hurt him. And then he went for like a line at the end where I was able to get a 1-over with a Rengar from hand. As we already previously discussed, Rengar is absolutely goated this set. But yeah, there wasn't a way for him to break on the last turn. It was kind of the opposite of Atlanta, where he ended up top decking a Kaisa to win the game exactly by 1 might on me in that game too. That was crucial. This time I think he just whiffed and ripped like a random 2-cost unit or something on the last turn where he just needed a little bit extra to get over me. And yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're in such a bad spot that you miss a turn 1 play, like you have to play to those outs and such. And then game 2, he missed a turn 1 play on the Arena's Greatest game, and I had the perfect start of Lucian into Fiora on the Valley game, which is just crazy, right? Valley of Idols, those who aren't aware, is one of the few cards that I actually put in set 2, or set 3 rather, where I can just immediately move a unit onto there. Typically, that's part of the reason why Evolution's out of the board, is just for going second, as well as first mate, as 3 miters that are basically always able to punch into the Valley of Idols, and then from there you can either immediately slam your set or your Fiora with a buff and start holding, which is obviously giga strong. So let me find a better way to have both my chats popped out. What's up, Zuhair? Good to see you. Cool to see Riftbound streams kind of game. Yeah, sometimes we do gameplay stuff in our Discord and stuff. We're working on expanding the Twitch out a little bit more and wanting to do gameplay stuff like that on here as well. Typically we end up doing a lot of this as recap stuff, just because that's what's the easiest, but and at least has the best in terms of retention and stuff. So but yeah, so that was my Swiss rounds, at least. Obviously, in the last round, typically the last round is just ended up drawing into top 8. It was myself, Squirtle, and weirdly enough, the Victor and the Darius were the four people that were actually a lock for top cut. Four order decks of all things, which was absurd. Did not expect four different order decks to be the top four that were able to actually lock it. And then obviously Anton unfortunately got the pair down into the Rek'Sai, who had to play, and then he lost because Rek'Sai is a pretty bad matchup for him. So yeah, that was super unfortunate. Otherwise, Anton would have gotten the top because he did have the correct record to be able to do it. His opponent could not draw, so yeah. So what was the reason for cutting Fade Dragon too expensive? Yep, exactly that. Originally, my list, I think the only thing I changed was I cut a Fade Dragon for a Kinko Monk, basically just a baby Fade Dragon. But the way that the deck ends up playing out now is that you're able to contest a lot earlier with the Ringars and the Vise compared to previously, where like in the previous version I was still on 3 Lucians, and I was more reliant on like Lucians and Fioras, which notably do not have a power cost, so it let you actually get to the point where you could potentially play a Fey Dragon. Whereas in this specific list, now that I've got like Rangars and stuff and Vise, I'm contesting the battlefields much earlier, which is obviously a benefit because it lets me close the game out earlier and, you know, just in general be a more active participant in the game. But it comes with the detriment of, you know, I'm spending a lot of power and just getting the 7 energy is just not feasible. And, you know, even if I do and it gets Starcrossed, like, what are we doing here, right? So yeah, that is so good right now. I will say that I think it's got a little bit of a. I think overall, yes, the meta is good. But I think a lot of it is there still are some of these decks that are a little bit too strong in my opinion. Oh, wow, this is the day 2. I don't know if this is the day 2 matchups. I don't know where the overall matchup is. Oh, it's probably hidden. Yeah, okay. Matchup matrix. Yeah, I was gonna say that E is probably way overtuned just based on its conversion rate. This deck had a crazy day 2 conversion ratio. Obviously, there was only the one in top 8 that I'll cover here in a sec. Now that I've gone through my Swiss rounds, but yeah, I think that this deck is way overtuned and it's definitely a top deck. I would say the same thing as Azir, but Azir is very broken, but didn't have quite as good of an overall win rate. It's just, yeah, I don't know if everyone wasn't on the right list or don't know how to play it quite as well, but yeah. What happened to me in top 4 was demonic, so 20 of top 64 was Yi. Yeah, that's crazy. I think the biggest thing about the Yi deck is it's just so difficult to punish when they just have this +2 constantly. They have a bunch of units now that they just don't care if they die. They're all just 2 for 2s, which ends up being 2 for 4s. It's like if you're playing against an opponent where every unit in their deck is a Noxious Hopeful, but they're also like Lonely Poros, so they draw cards. They're Scuttle Crabs, so they draw cards. They're Pit Rookies, so they like buff other things. Combined with the fact that they have Emperor's Dice is another way to like reuse all of these interplay effects. Um, it's crazy. So I think that's why Yi is definitely a little overtuned and at the top of the meta right now. So, but outside of that, we have seen like a pretty consistent win rate across the board, at least on average, and nothing that's like too much of an outlier. Although I will say that 60% overall is crazy. This Rengar card is kind of broken. So, what could even ban for Yi? The legends? Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Is like the legend. I think is the real problem child here. We see it with like Lee Sin, right? 48% win rate comparatively to 60. It really just is like the legend. And I think that Yi is going to be kind of the weirdest outlier as we move forward, specifically because when there's no longer a best of for Yi, it's not really that much of a reason to play for it. As cool as like the top 4 was and being able to put on that performance in terms of pricing, the additional benefit that I got was very minimal. They removed the top 8 promo for some reason. It's now a top 64 promo, so I don't even get a unique promo. The only thing I have is a playmat over here, which Daniel's been trying to sell his, and he has not gotten any bites on it. And then a little bit of cash, but compared to the price of the actual best ofs and stuff, right? There's not much in terms of additional pricing. So, but for those that want to lock in a top 64 invite, I don't think there's a better deck to do it than Proving Ground Yi, right? So, yeah. Am I gonna get locked into Alex's basement with everyone else? No, no. Everyone else went to Alex's basement. Daniel, Matt, and Anton are all at Alex's place while waiting for Hartford. So they just decided to fly there and stay at his place. So everybody's gonna be in Alex's basement. So y'all are stuck with me for the foreseeable future. I am all that you have. I appreciate the sub, Mr. BJ. Or MRG Big J. Um, Do you think when Veneta is released, we'll see people playing Origins Proving Ground Legends? Yeah. I don't know if we will. I think Yi is the only one that like has some contention, is potentially strong enough to continue seeing play into the future. For other set one legends, we have Annie, I guess, is like a consistent aggro deck, but I'm sure Zed will be very cool, and we still have Draven that exists is not that much worse of an Annie, right? We have Pike that exists as actually Pike had a terrible win, right? So maybe not Pike. Uh, but Annie at least. It's crazy that Pike had such a high play rate and this terrible, terrible win rate. I don't know what people's obsession is with Pike. Maybe it's just that the artwork's cool. This is I guess my PSA to Riot. If you guys are looking for people to play your legend, just give it cool overnumber art like Pike does, and everybody will want to play it. So there's my PSA to Riot. If that's the goal anyways. So. Yeah, exactly. A free on guard every turn is just, yeah, it's a full card essentially that you're drawing, and it works on both sides too. It's not only energy efficient, but it's just everything that you ever need, right? So, do you know if the Latour and Get to Know on August 8th will have Origins medals? This is their first time that they've done the additional prize support for the medals for those who don't know, they're basically giving additional prize support for any of the unofficial events by giving best of medals, but the regular medals instead of the actual best of medals. So it's just giving some additional prize support for those events. That is really nice. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the Charlie's event as well as the Pro Play Games event that has been hosted. So right, supporting those a little bit more, which is really, really nice. So actually move some screens around so that I'm actually looking at my camera while I'm looking at some of this stuff. Yeah, I've got a couple people asking about Lux combo, so because we were one of the better performing decks on it, it's something I can cover too. I think I still have my Rift Atlas deck up, so we can go through this at some point once I finish my tournament recap, just because I do think it is like kind of the standout deck, at least compared to other things. That's at least not something that made top cut. So yeah, we'll do some Lux Finite stuff for you guys. I think that'll be good content. But yeah, so I think that was the majority of it. My top 8 match was against a E player, super nice guy. He said this was his first tournament ever and he was able to make top 8, so that was crazy lucky for him. And yeah, he said he was not expecting to make top 8, but he was still a good player. I could tell that he had like some of the nerves that come from not being used to playing card games, if that makes sense. But he was still like a very good gamer, if that makes sense. It's just one of those that wasn't super accustomed to everything that is involved with card games. And as somebody who's been playing card games as long as I have, I'm very well aware of how to take advantage of that sort of stuff, and was able to which I don't think Yi is a very bad deck for set. So if this ends up being the meta moving forward, I'm okay with it. It is a little bit of an annoying matchup, but any of the top decks are going to be like that. Like obviously, I'd much rather have the Jins, the Victors, the Jinxes of the world as my actual matchup spread if I could forever. But yeah, in terms of like the top decks, I think Yi is one of the ones that I'd like to beat up more. But yeah, I obviously had a pretty tough round or tournament with some of the players ended up playing. Having to play against both Prismat and Alan and Swiss was kind of tough, and then Oh boy, my top four match. Where do I even begin to describe my top four match to you all? Um, for those of you who watched, I believe it was streamed the entire time. So if people want to go back and watch what happened to me, they're welcome to. But game one was a slaughter. He notably kept his hands both games, which is never a good sign against a good player like Squirtle. So I knew that I was probably cooked, and I missed a turn one play going first and second. So both games against him, I missed a turn one play. Um, yeah. So, and obviously going second into a good player who had the nuts perfect opener on his Hall of Legends battlefield. Like I was never winning that game one as soon as I missed a turn one play. I had to go for like some aggressive lines, but I knew that like there was no way I was ever winning that game as soon as I missed a turn one play. It's just not happening. Going second. So, and then game two, I described it as the worst bad beats I have ever had, and I've been playing card games for about 18 years and do not think I've ever had a game go as poorly as that one did from like such a commanding lead just based on the amount of top decks that he had. So, um, yeah, everybody was, yeah, as everyone can see from the chats, like, yeah, it was a terrible, terrible thing. Everyone was like, man, it was so tough seeing that happen to you. And it's like I was the one who had to live it. I was up there on the stage. I was having it happen to me the whole time. How do you think I felt? Well, this was happening. I was just like, is this really happening to me? Like what do I even do? What do I even say about this? Um yeah, exactly. As Ellie put it. It happens and on to the next is really it. So but yeah, the full recap just involved me going for a line where like I saboed away his entire hands pretty much after setting up my board, which was obviously super powerful. I was able to like clear most of his board. I was surprised that he kept the hand that he did, to be honest, because it was very equipment light. I think he only ended up making a couple of units early, and then holding up a bunch of interaction on my turn four. I think because I went turn two Fiora into turn three set plus Pit Rookie, right? So going to my turn four, I was able to just play Sabos. He didn't have a Defy, so I was able to kind of clear his board pretty efficiently. He ended up going for like a line where he like played an on guard, which I don't think I agree with, to be honest. But he like played the on guard in order to make sure that he kept a token around. Um, and yeah, so I granted I would have probably taken the on guard had he let me, but he just knew he was in such an awkward spot that he had to go for something to keep a token around, right? And obviously he won the game, so what can I say? But yeah, I sabbed him and then he ended up top decking in a rise, which I think was one of his better draws in order to just get a couple of tokens out there. After which I'm not sure what his next. I think his next draw step was a brutalizer after that, which is best possible equipment. Or no, I think I left him with an Arise, and he was able to go Brutalizer or Arise because he drew Brutalizer for a turn, which is best possible equipment, which let him break my board. After which, I think he drew Death Grip, which let him break my board again in a more efficient way. And then he was entirely empty-handed this entire time, by the way. Off that Death Grip, he drew a Charm, which was able to kill my Auction in the back. And then after that, he was able to draw a crab, which drew him into equipment, which gave him two bodies to be able to double conquer on a future turn. It was all of these are one ofs in his deck, or at least I think two charm ofs, one crab. Like he had already played one brutalizer, so there were only two more of those in the deck. Yeah, it was brutal. So yeah, and my whole plan at the point was basically I had an arena bar riding and I was low on runes, so I basically just had to keep using this auction to trade for each of his tokens, and it was beneficial for me because like I was spending a rune, sure, but I just had an arena bar that was rebuffing the auction every turn. And then yeah, as soon as he drew the charm off of the death grip, which he actually I think he needed to specifically go death grip into charm off the top in order to make the line happen, because otherwise he only had two brutalizers as only equipment with the sand soldier. My auction was an 8 because it was 4 plus 3 with the BF sword plus the buff, so it was an 8. So he had no real way to get over it otherwise. So and he didn't have enough green to go for the quad equip plus charm. That would have been 5 green, which he did not have access to. So yeah, he had to go exactly death grip. I guess he could have gone discipline He could have gone. He had to go Death Grip or Discipline into Charm, right? And he did exactly that. So we got cooked. Um, yeah. So the Judge shuffle into the Charm top deck. I didn't even realize that. I mean, I that was like kind of a weird thing where he like grabbed second card and he said that he didn't see it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just keep it then. I trust him. I don't think that he's somebody that was malicious, and it definitely wasn't something malicious that he did. But because they were like very concerned about the whole stream incident where in Sydney they had whatever the thing in the finals was, right? So they were like talking to us and they're like, we got to be very careful about everything that we're doing. We're going to make sure that there's no issues whatsoever because we do not want to get cooked by chat on stream again. So it was very funny being there and just being like, all right, well, I knew as soon as he like did it happens all the time where he just like accidentally grabbed two cards and he realized it immediately, so he just put it back. But they were just like, oh, maybe he saw it, so they put it back and they shuffled into literally the judge shuffled his deck into the perfect configuration that he was able to do this death grip into charm nonsense. So, um, yeah, I think it's like, yeah, I don't know, one of those things that you literally can't make up what happened to me. It was such an absolute beating, absolute fisting that happened to me. So, um, yeah. So and that was the end of my tournament run. Unfortunately, I had no more games to be played after that. So, um, yeah. Destiny working against me. What can you do? Exactly. That is literally what I said too. Is like I mean at the time I was pretty happy with it. I wasn't really expecting to go that far. Obviously, I think I'm a good player and one of the best of this game, so I do want to get my win eventually, but I'll maybe go for that in set four, or at the regionals, obviously. I'll be much more inclined to want to play something that I think has odds to win as opposed to up until this point where the majority of the pricing is just in the best ofs, right? So um yeah, that's going to be my focus for as far as the RQs are concerned. Come set four, if there's like something good like Diana level, where we've seen with um, Alan and them that are able to do it well, or Annie level for Prismat, and I can find my niche deck that I can just farm all the medals of while still having its odds to top, then I'll maybe do that. But for now, Set's obviously my boy, and the deck's not bad. Obviously, I'm able to have tournament runs like this, so it's certainly not a bad deck. Don't ever get me wrong. I think it even ended up having, yeah, it actually had like a pretty high win rate. Granted, pretty small sample size and boosted by the fact that I was playing it. But overall pretty good win rate, even up here with some of the top decks, in terms of just raw win rate. So I do think the deck's good. It just has its inconsistencies for sure. So um, is set good against Diana or Ezreal? Feels stressful while trying Order and Body. Yeah, it's not terrible. My big thing against Diana is, if you guys watched the game against Alan, was the games where he had Hui and was riding it, I got cooked. The games where he did not have Hui, he got cooked. So if you're able to like challenge off the Hui at some point, or there are even lines where I'll like Fey Folk drag a Hui in while people are tapped out. And yeah, it's fine. But Alan was smart enough against me where he always kept up 3 energy as soon as he played the Hui, so that he knew that I couldn't challenge because he's holding up a Starcross the whole time. So he basically just like sacked 3 of his runes the entire game by just leaving 3 up. But that's what you have to do in the matchup because Hui is just so powerful. So yeah. Any set 4 legends that we know about that you're looking at, or do you more base decisions off the mechanics of the legend itself? For me, I do not speculate on anything. Like in terms of legend, if I could pick anything, I would obviously pick whatever I think the most valuable legend will be. But in terms of like iconic league characters or anything like that, I don't really have any attachment to that. All of these cards to me are just what they are in the game, right? I don't have that much of an attachment to Set as much as Set is my boy now. I don't have attachment to Set as the league character as much as I do the deck and Set Kingpin as a card. Set the Boss as a legend. These are the things that I personally have an attachment to, right? So in terms of that, I'll just play whatever I think will generate the most value in terms of actually getting that best of, or I think will just be the most competitive. But all of these cards or all these decks are just based on the context of the cards that are surrounding them, right? Showstopper is a card that I love. Punch First is a card that I love. Arena Bar is a card that I love. So that's why this deck calls to me more so than anything else. Set's good against E. Yeah, I think so too. Set has done well enough into E. So, but I do think that E overall is the problem. I think at the end of the day, we've only got one more tournament where we have to deal with E, and then at least at the RQ level, he won't be a problem anymore. I think if I were to say anything, Rengar was definitely a mistake, but that's just part of the game now at this point. So I played top lane when I played League. What's a legend you would recommend people to play from Unleashed? Um, Depends upon what your specific playstyle is. Oh, Vex did particularly poorly. I think Diana is like the best in terms of power level from Unleashed, right? But Kha'Zix is also, I think, one of like the more underrepresented decks that's really really good. Its biggest issue is that it has a bad Yi matchup. But outside of that, it actually I think has one of the most consistent matchups kind of across the board. Apparently a really bad Rengar matchup, which is really funny if you guys know the lore of League. Oh, it's causing this to. Am I on the? Wait, is this my copy? Why is someone able to edit my copy? Make a copy of the copy, but I can't do that. Can you tell me how to beat Rengar with Yi? I've been getting cooked by it. It's interesting. I would assume that you just have to make your breakpoints a little bit better, but it's tough to say. People probably don't play Yi for metal card, but for strength. I mean, there are a lot of players that right now that just want their regional invites, right? I think that's a big thing that everybody wants to be able to go to regionals. So for a lot of people, they just want their first top 64 to be able to go to that. So yeah. Why didn't you go buff Fiora and to challenge her with Hui against Allen? I think there might have been a turn where I could have done that. I just didn't want to spend. It would have costed so much power in order to do that. But maybe that was the only winning line. It just ends up trading my Fiora and my buff and my challenge to call off the Hui. It felt like a lot. And I also just felt like there are a lot of situations into the Hui typically where you're able to get them to tap down below Starcrossed, and so long as they're below Starcrossed or Eclipse, then it's not as scary. But there's always smokescreen and stuff too that potentially can stop a challenge. So, yeah. Do you think they should consider removing any of the bans like Draven, who's definitely not as bad as units like Vex or Rengar? Yes, I do think that you potentially could remove some of the bans as we move forward. There are cards like Called Shot and Scrap Heap that I think I would never unban, but I do think you could unban Draven Vanquisher at this point if you really wanted to. And it wouldn't be too big of an issue. Reaver's Row, I hope never comes back. Fuck Reaver's Row. That it's like the least fun battlefield in the entire game. I hope that battlefield never comes back. Obelisk, I've spoken as about something that I would like to potentially see again as just something that can fix the going second problem. The only issue that I have with it is it only really works for decks that have 4/4 champions, chosen champions, because you're just guaranteed to have your best turn one play going second on the Alice games, and I think that's kind of a problem because not every deck has access to that, right? So it just makes the decks like Kaisa and Draven and Vex and all these sorts of decks a little bit stronger, given that they're just able to start with that and play. So, what kind of tools do you think Orange and Yellow are missing to actually be top tiers decks? I think it's not really about the tools that color combination has, and it's less about that and more about the tools that other decks have, right? All these decks are just very built around like sets built around the idea of just one big champion. So as soon as you get Starcrossed or something like that, then you're just kind of cooked, right? And obviously you can make the argument that you have like Repulse and Sabotage, but you never want to be in the position where you need to have access to like you're one of in a deck that, or one or two of, or even if you were to play three of them, needing to have access to those just in order to play the game against Starcross, let alone if they just bounce it in base, because then it doesn't actually end up working. Yeah, it's a little bit of an inconsistency. Honestly, my biggest thing is like it doesn't have access to Hui and Stellacorn Herder like Aurelia and Diana does. So compared to those decks, you're obviously going to be suffering, and then Yi just has probably the best Legends ability in the game at this point. So yeah, compared to like some of those other top decks. Azir as another one of the top decks in my mind, as just super efficient with everything it does. All of its equipment are very broken. If you just have access to all these equipment and you make good use out of all your spells and stuff, then the deck's pretty unbeatable. So um, I will be attending every RQ, so that will always be the case. So yeah. Explain the Lucians, what matchups. The Lucians are the only thing matchup I think I sometimes board Lucian in and keep it in is against Aurelia. Against everything else, you just board the Lucians in, going second, and then you board out the Cythereas. So you're just making a swap because Lucian is better than Cytherea going second. That's all the Lucians are there for. Would I consider playing Fiora? No. I have no intention of playing Fiora. The biggest thing that I like about Set is that it's a combat deck that's built around like inevitability of saving my units over and over and putting my opponent into bad combat situations where they have to spend a bunch of resources to break my board. I save my board and then I'm able to break back in. So this playstyle is very unique to Set and not something that I would really consider out of this other color combination if I wasn't Set, you know. So none of the other legends in this color combination have interested me. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a card draw thing with Set that's a problem, just because it's a deck that's like built around the idea of making every card I draw does something, and I just have to figure out. It's like a puzzle, is the way that I describe it. Where one of the most iconic games I remember was my game 2 against Prismat, where if people watch it, I won the game without drawing a single spell, um, and I won the game. I literally did not draw a single spell the entire game. Technically, my last draw step was a showstopper, but I didn't actually end up needing it in order to win the game, right? So I think my deck is like half spells, or I should say even non-units, because I didn't draw an arena bar either. But I was able to navigate the game in such a way that I knew what to do in that sort of situation, and yeah, I played around that accordingly. But there are also games, obviously, where I'm going to draw spells. The spells are in there to be drawn and to be played. Um, and I'll play the game very differently when I have, a bunch of punch firsts in my hand. I can be more aggressive. Whereas in that game, I was like, okay, well, I need to kind of wait until I am able to do combat a little bit better. So I just ended up like playing a bunch of units on the Valley of Idols and making the game a lot slower than what they're traditionally used to playing, right? So what I think about Arena's greatest ban. Yeah, I would be down for like an Arena's greatest ban. I think battlefields are one of the things that you can just kind of ban without really hurting too much. People aren't going to get too upset about if they just have to choose a different battlefield, right? At least in my mind. So if they're looking for some targeted bans, I think if they just end up banning a bunch of battlefields, they can even say that it's like they're rotating some of the battlefields. We're playing on a new map now or something in terms of league, right? So, um, yeah. Just don't ban Stellacorn, please. I need a Kali to work. I would love a Stellacorn ban. I'm sorry, but I can respect that too. I'm sure people will want to play a Kali. She seems like a very popular champion. So, um, are we seeing an updated set guide? Yes, I will be trying to do an updated set guide for people in the next week or two. That is the plan. It's been a very busy time for me, obviously. So yes, I'll stop playing Set and RQ when there's no best ofs. Maybe in like some of the side events, if this deck ends up still being good and come Set 4, then I'll bust out Set for old time's sake. But if there's no best of, there's not really a reason for me to be playing this deck. So Abandoned Hall ban, yeah, that's another one I could go to for sure. So but yeah, that basically covers my whole tournament run and what we ended up having. So overall, it was a really good tournament. I was glad to be able to put on quite a show for people. And yeah, it was overall good. So the I will go into a full tournament recap. Now that we have a few people, there is one thing that I kind of want to discuss with everybody as a just a general overall thing, is it's kind of the discourse on Twitter right now in terms of splits, and just getting my opinion out there. I think is kind of an important thing to discuss. Um, so there was a split that apparently ended up happening for one of the best of cards that was causing a bunch of discourse, and the guy ended up selling the card and not honoring the split, which is obviously very scummy. No matter how you look at it, right? At the end of the day, like if it's something that you committed to, uh, and whether you agree with the concept of splits or not, everybody can agree with the fact that if you say something, you should be held to that standard, right? But I think there's been a lot of discourse over people who don't understand the idea of card games and how they work in general when it comes to splitting. A lot of people were thinking that this is collusion, which it's not, or that it undermines the integrity of the tournament, which it also does not. Um, but it is one of those things that I think people are. It's very easy for people on Twitter to just be like, "Oh yeah, you. If I was in that spot, I would never take a split or anything like that." It's very. This is like life changing money for some people, especially over in like Europe, where there are people who aren't as fortunate. Sometimes when you're talking about a card that can be worth thousands of dollars, and you can take a guaranteed amount of money that can be life changing money for people, as opposed to gambling. Once you're put into that position, most people are going to take that sort of thing, right? This is something that's very common even in things like poker, not even necessarily just TCG spaces as well. Um, yeah, so the fact that people are just like being like, oh, everybody's stupid for even considering the idea of this and that people should just be playing for the competitive integrity or whatever, it's all complete nonsense. Splits are something that are totally above board and something that should be truly honored. It's something that I've taken plenty of splits in my time as well, just because it's better to take the guaranteed amount of money rather than continue gambling, at least in my mind, right? So, and yeah, I think splits do help and keep the integrity. I think it's like the opposite, as Blader Magician said in Twitch chat. People are like, oh, well, it's gonna undermine the integrity, but if all the Kaises have split, then they're all incentivized to continue doing well, so that they can actually get their photo with the card and be able to say that the ones who won it. I think that part's nice, and they obviously still there's additional pricing beyond the best of, so there's still reasons to play. Whereas the integrity is actually undermined when they're competing for it, because it's much more likely that they're going to bribe their opponent and be like, oh, I'll give you $5,000 to scoop, because if you scoop to me, I get a card that's worth $25,000, $30,000. So I can just bribe you. And that obviously is against the rules, as opposed to if just all the Kaises in day two are like, oh, let's just chop it up. We all get to walk out happy, 7 grand on the weekend. Fantastic. Um, then yeah, like obviously they can just compete to their heart's content. They don't have to be super stressed about anything. Right. Um, so yes, I've done splits pretty much constantly. So the important differential, because this is one thing that a lot of people ask, is what's the difference between like a split and a bribe? And what it really comes down to is splits are if it is within the entirety of the pricing in the tournament, right? So whatever the pricing is that's in the tournament that we're at, then you are allowed to split that however you deem fit. Typically 50-50 is how most splits in want to be, where if we end up playing against each other and we declare a price split, then our combined winnings are going to be combined and then redistributed to the both of us, right? So that's the most typical split that ends up um, being accustomed. But there are plenty of other splits that have existed, and poker, as the one that I've used as the other example, is in tournaments they have something called an equity split, where basically at some point once you get to in these cash tournaments where the chips don't actually have any value, they just determine where your placing ends up being in the tournament. You can do equity splits where based on what my percentage of the chips that exist, I can get that much equity, and then we can just call it a wash here. So if I have 50% of the chips and somebody else has 30 and then somebody else has 20, then we can just do an equity split based on that, because if I have 50% of the chips, I'm 50% to win the event. But here we can just remove all the gambling together and just cash out the pricing and stuff like that. And that's kind of similar to what these best of splits have been in my mind, is they end up being more of an equity split. So yes. And yeah, like I mentioned, even if you're against the idea of splits, I think it's anyone can easily say that if somebody commits to something, then they obviously should honor that. So yeah, I see Savage HR saying someone said the Pike best of winner by their opponent. There's plenty of stories of people that have had bribes, and fortunately, I think UVS has done a lot to as much as they can, basically, to police that. I think they're doing a lot of good work with that. But the easiest way to do that is just there's no reason to bribe if everybody's just split. So when you have these like few way splits on these cards, it really just helps the integrity of the tournament by making it so that you're just no longer incentivized to bribe your opponent. There's literally no reason to for you to, because it doesn't matter if you or somebody else gets the best of card. So I think it is really, really good. So the one thing that I recommend to people in the future, should you find yourself in that position, and I kind of shouted this out on Twitter as well, is to find somebody that you trust to help facilitate these splits. Specifically in Riftbound right now, with all these best ofs, we have a couple of big buyers who end up buying the majority of the cards, and I've already talked to both of them and know both of them. They're both very close friends of mine on a personal level, and they're the types of people that will never, if they knew or know anything about a card that is functionally stolen like this, right? Because in our minds as card game players, this card was functionally stolen. If the agreement was already made to split this card, um, then they obviously would never buy it, and people are just going to be losing money by stealing cards at that point, right? So, and then anything that gets sold through them, they can handle this chop entirely themselves. So like I said, if anyone ends up finding themselves or knowing a friend that's in this position, just message me or find me, and I can help direct people to the right location to make sure that we prevent this sort of thing in the future, because nobody deserves to be losing thousands of dollars over something as silly as this, right? So that was the majority of what I wanted to say on it, just as a general PSA and our take for everybody here at Challenger on the whole drama going down in Twitter right now. Is yeah, it's shitty, but hopefully we can use this as a learning lesson moving forward and be a little bit more careful with these. And you know, it's something that is not it's not going to get anyone banned by talking about it or something like that. This is outside of UVS's. UVS obviously cannot support it because there's no way for them to um, or there's no way for them to like split a metal card, right, and facilitate that sort of thing. They could split pricing when it comes to like cash pricing, but that's not anything that anyone really cares about. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things that they can't really reinforce or enforce in any way, but they also are not going to um, ban anybody for talking about the fact that they split with a couple of people, right? Um, did I ever play Yu-Gi-Oh? I never played Yu-Gi-Oh. That is one of the things that I think has been weird for people for coming from Yu-Gi-Oh. Is Yu-Gi-Oh is a game that does not allow for like intentional draws or splits or anything of that kind. So some game card games have like a mentality that this is something that isn't common, but in Riftbound it's all above board. So that was everything I wanted to say about that, just because I knew it was something on everybody's mind, and hopefully moving forward we'll be able to make things a little bit safer for everybody. How do you determine who is responsible for selling the card? Typically, that's why it gets messy with splits, and that's why I always recommend selling the card immediately. Obviously, if you're doing a split, you intend on selling the card immediately. So come talk to me. I can find you a buyer, whatever your best of is. I promise you have a buyer who will give you a good price. So, yes, that is my recommendation. Are people buying all the best ofs that they can? Um, we essentially have a few brokers in Riftbound where there's tons of different buyers, but they all end up going through a couple of different brokers. And they take a very small commission in order to facilitate everything to make things a little bit simpler for people. Yeah, I'd say the cheapest. There's some in like the 8 to 10K range for some best ofs, and then the highest ends up being like Ari at like the 30 to 40 range. So it just depends upon the popularity of the champion. So um, yeah. So any opinions on my LeBlanc list? I think the LeBlanc list is fine. Daniel obviously struggled with it. He ended up having a pretty cursed run. Um, I don't actually even know what his. He lost to a couple of. I think he lost to an Azir, a Diana, and something else. But He still thinks the deck is good. It's just kind of in a really weird spot where if you aren't able to get your engine online fast enough, then obviously you lose. It's like kind of a prison deck almost, or almost similar to the Lux Finette, which for fun I'll go through the Lux Finette at some point so that people can understand it. But yeah, one of those things that you have like the inevitability, but you have to be able to get to that point. So any deck that's able to lock you out with like Starcross and stuff is just gonna is you're really gonna struggle into. So um we need us to give you a tip to provide what is it they're asking for, DJ Vex? Oh, for like the no. I will not charge anyone anything when it comes to the best of stuff. I'll just put you in touch with the right people and the right buyers. I more so as like a head figure of the community just want to make sure that we can prevent as much bad blood and all this sort of stuff when it comes to um, people getting scammed, unfortunately. So I just want to make sure at the end of the day that everyone's able to have a good time. And, you know, when we're talking about life changing money for some of these people, I really want to be able to help people out with that. So, yeah. Dana seems so tough to beat on set. Yeah, it's definitely not my favorite. So, um, no, appreciate the Prime sub. What's the best side events to farm money? The Saturday and Sunday super events are the best ones, and then the Friday pre-RQ is pretty good. We ended up doing so most of us ended up missing the Friday event that was the pre-RQ, and we did the side events in the mirror of the I think there were four of us that essentially combined our tickets into two Aries, which if you're able to do that, then it's pretty good, but it's a little bit less consistent than the pre-RQ, so I always recommend just kind of going for the scheduled events, the pre-RQ and then the super Saturdays and Sundays. So um do I think the Yi win rate is balanced? No. Yi is broken. The deck is. I think the issue with Yi is that it's a little bit too simple. Kind of anyone can pick up Yi and at least do decently well with it, just because so long as you know to only have leave one unit on a battlefield, then your opponent's gonna have to be playing cards in order to get over your units. And it's yeah, so difficult for people to be able to play. Um, but yeah, I think the kind of going into the actual tournament recap, and then maybe we can get onto some Lux Minute stuff. Um, it was obviously cool to see 8 different decks representing our top 8 here. I think that it doesn't tell the entire story. I think the one story that we're kind of seeing consistently with Riftbound is that your deck choice doesn't necessarily matter as much as it does you as a player. Especially with us seeing two guys on Rek'Sai and Darius that were able to go 11-1, right? This Rek'Sai, I guess he went. I don't know exactly how this happened, but he went 10-0-2 or 10-0 or no 11-0-2. He had 2 draws on Rek'Sai, which is very strange. I would assume that's the type of deck that can never draw, right? Daniel bombed out of day one, unfortunately. Um, So yeah, obviously I think Squirtle's the goat of Azir. Going 30-0 is absurd on this deck. So if you're playing Azir, just copy his list. It all makes sense. It's basically just a deck that uses a couple of small tokens that are just way too efficient, um, and then combined with all these spells to make it so it's impossible for your opponent to break in. So yeah, it did seem a little unit light was my only quote or my only comment on this deck, but I guess it ends up working out for him. So I'm not gonna question the goat that is Squirtle. This guy's a monster. So as lucky as he did get against me, he also was like a fantastic player. It's not like he was just lucky. He truly, I mean, he played perfectly. So it just so happened that his deck rewarded against him too. Um, I can look at the fakeness of runs. Sure, we can get to that. Let's look at this. That can be our next thing here. I mean, honestly, even my run looks relatively fake, so I can only be so so biased on it. I can even say that my run was somewhat fake. I mean, I played my first 4 rounds were pretty easy, as people that ended up making day 2, at least on a relative level. But then, pretty much everyone else I played against was relatively good, right? Past past round of 5, so I just got lucky here. Whereas in Vancouver, I actually lost 2 of my first 5 rounds. Here, I was able to get through those rounds relatively easy, which this is typically where you should find these matchups. And then past that, I played against majority good players. So, but we can take a look through everybody's tournament run. We need a deck building guide for you. It's something I'm planning on doing once set 4 comes out, since that will be when people are a little bit more interested in doing that, right? So is that not this guy's name? Go to UBS. Is there standings that are part of this? Oh, here we go. Okay. Let's look through some of these people's matchups and see how they got here. Obviously, I think it's important to take a look through everybody's run, and see how they got as far as they did. So he had a round 1 bye. He actually lost round 2, which is crazy. The round 2 was a Draven who actually did really well, but every other opponent he played actually ended up doing pretty poorly. Basically, like as soon as they lost to him, they lost every other match, which is like 2-3, 4-3, 5-3, and then 7-6, 8-5, 9-4. That's very interesting. He ended up winning a Victor mirror match, which also wild. Beat a 9 for Rengar, but at this point he was X1. So I think the Rengar went 1-2 at this point. Yeah, beat this guy and then drew with his teammate. So, some drama from the Aurora players still play the Force of tie with the Ezreal and need one turn to win. I did see it. I don't have enough context to really make comment on that other drama. The only drama that I'm comfortable giving a comment on is the Kaisa drama. So, the Draven is the best of. Okay, that's cool. So, overall, I would say he got a very fortunate bracket up until this like round 9. I mean, also like playing Victor into Sivir, like that's always a free win for Victor. Sivir can't do anything into Victor, so then rounds 10 and on were pretty real, but I will say that he had a pretty soft bracket. Again, whenever I talk about this is no offense to the players, but it's more so about the validity of the deck that they're playing to see exactly how strong it is, right? And like for example, this guy's insane. He played against a couple of people who ended up losing to him, and then just like doing extremely well after that. So let's see. He played against. Is this real? He played against a Jax. I feel so bad for this guy. He played against a 6-0 Jax. I actually saw this guy because I think he was sitting next to me. This might have been my stream match or something. Yeah, I think I got stolen away when I saw this guy. Yeah, because this was round 7. This is when I played against Gonkra. And I took a look to see what legend he was playing, and it was on Jax, and I was like, oh my god, a 6-0 Jax in round 7. That's crazy. And then he played against this guy, lost, and then lost every single match afterwards. Because he ended up 6-7. So that's very unfortunate for that guy. What a tournament run. And then obviously he lost to Squirtle, which who didn't. But yeah, this guy, I would say this deck actually looks really, really good just based on the quality of opponents that this guy played. So yeah, this Darius deck and this Darius player is obviously a god. Let's see, let's see. I'm curious how this ended up happening. He did it for the meme. Yeah, at some point I mean, in theory, you could just like infinitely scoop. Maybe it's possible that he was like the only Jax or something and he just like scooped everybody. I've seen that. So this Rek'Sai drew in round 2 and round 5. He drew against an Azir that went 3-1-2, and then drew against a Teemo, and then beat everybody else they played against, including like, I mean, these were a lot of real decks, but definitely looking at the record of the players that he played against, uh, don't tell a great story. But you know, Rek'Sai is just like a traditional aggressive deck. You know, it's one that you don't have a ton of control over. So you just gotta play aggressively and hope it goes right, win enough die rolls, all that sort of stuff. So if someone is 10-0, can they? No, you cannot start drawing until you're 11-0 at the current thing. You need 11-1-1 is the record that you need to guarantee top, which only like 4 of us ended up, or no, I think 7 of us ended up being 11-1-1, or better. And then Priz was the last person who was able to make top cut and eke in there. So let's see. Diwali had. Diwali's my boy, but you know, this is a relatively fraudulent run, all things considered, at least in terms of the level of opponent that he played against. So right now, this Darius guy was had the most impressive run. Didn't put Squirtles in because this guy could have played against anyone. And oh my god, look at this guy's tournament run, bro. How is anyone supposed to stop this monster? You're telling me in rounds 7 he played against a guy who went 11-2, and then everyone else had double digit wins from every win on? This guy's a monster. It's crazy. Even like his round, was this his round 3 went 9-4. His round 5 went 9-4. His round 6 went 8-5. Insane. Yeah, this guy's just a god. I don't know what to say. I'm starting a new religion, and we just worship Squirtle. That's it. Yeah. Um, and then we can see what Prismat's run was. I don't think any of these are like crazy fraudulent. I think all these decks have some sort of realistic reason to look at them. And maybe I underestimated this Darius list because this guy had a demonic run, as you can tell based on his OMW. So then Prismat had a pretty tough run too. Looks like he played against a bunch of Yees and somehow able to make it work. I think this is like a terrible matchup for him. So yeah. Hmm. Neat. But he couldn't take down the goat. Honestly, very few have. So well, including Prismat, where Zelda beat me in that top 8. But what can I say? So. Yeah, honestly, all these lists at the top look pretty good. If you're looking at playing any of these legends, where's our Rift decks? I think all these lists have their merits and are worth considering. So, if any of these decks tickle your fancy, I would say the Rek'Sai probably had the easiest bracket out of everybody that made top 8. Um, but you know, and apparently, I mean, this Darius Hook deck is pretty good. Who would have guessed? How to find this doc? Yeah, I can link the doc. You'll probably have to make a. Oh wait, this is not the original. Let me make a copy of a copy, and then people could, in theory, go nuts. Should depend on Aurelia's performance in this RQ. I'll post this in both chats. Hopefully. Nope, YouTube will not let me because it's too long. Very cool. Well, I'll post it in Twitch. I think Aurelia just didn't have quite as many good players on it as we're used to seeing. I'm curious where she kind of went wrong in the matchup matrix. So she apparently Aurelia. Oh yeah, I have heard this that Aurelia has a really bad Master Yi matchup, and that's kind of shown here. And also has a really bad Victor matchup, which was like one of the decks that kind of was the standout one, right? So in terms of representation, so I think that's really all it was. Too much Yi. Yi was super popular, and that's apparently a bad matchup for Aurelia. So access denied for the list. Share. Aha. Let me fix that. Okay, people should be able to. There we go. There we go. People want to do it. It should be viewer only, but you should be able to copy it if you want to do it, and you can play with it. The spreadsheet's awesome. So you can go into the player lookup, and then you can type whatever name that you want. You just have to do the classic file. Oops. Um, File and make a copy, and then you should be able to play with it all you want. So, yeah, I think Aurelia has always kind of fundamentally been a deck that has the issue of needing the right answers at the right time. And if you play against players who are good enough to check you, or decks like E that just kind of force you to get checked every single turn because of the legend ability, like you're just gonna run out of answers eventually. Um, but yeah, that's my take on Aurelia. I still think that deck's very good. Obviously, it's didn't have quite the performance here, but we've had a different deck winning every event of the top tier decks, right? Azir, Diana, and Aurelia now winning. And at this point, I guess Yi is going to win the fourth event. So if they can, it sticks with the trend, as I think he's like the best deck that hasn't won yet. Um, but we'll see how if that ends up paying off. Yeah, appreciate the Prime subs, guys, over on Twitch. I've not seen a Jin Infinite combo. I don't know what the Jin Infinite is, but if there is one, that would be interesting. Is Aggro LeBlanc better than Baited? I don't like Aggro LeBlanc personally. I know Baited Hook won the first two best ofs. I don't know what the LeBlanc list was that won this best of though. So um, I would be on the side of just sticking with Hook, even though it hasn't performed super well for us. I still think the list is good. He has won China. Oh, is there a? Oh yeah, that's right. There was the China event that Yi won. So there you go, including the China events. Then yeah, Yi gets to top it off. So Yi, I guess apparently according to Rift the only tier one deck, which I question their tiering here if this is how they have it, including Vex with a 47% win rate in tier two, but some of these decks like a zero tier three, they're very fake, very fake. Um, I mean, I'm gonna try to win the next event, but I'm not like if it doesn't end up happening for me, I will say that it's not something that I'm gonna cry about, right? So, can you explain why Baron was used in Vancouver but not Utrecht? Did Diwali not play it? Can you change it? I mean, I'm guessing. Okay, well, I can tell you what happened with this, which is that he got spooked by the Lux Finite, um, because he put two invert timelines in his sideboard. So I'm guessing that the matchups that he wanted the Barons for, he felt were not as meta relevant anymore, and he was just like, well, I'm too scared of this Lux deck, so I'm gonna shove two invert timelines in my sideboard. Uh, which maybe this can be a good transition into what the Lux Finite is for those who have not seen it. Um, yeah, he just didn't want to lose the combo. And at the end of the day, like you have to remember that all of us who are playing these decks, we're all human, right? There's no mathematical reason sometimes why people decide to play the cards that they do. It's just a gut feeling, or it's like I really don't want to lose to one deck. Diwali really doesn't want to lose to gear decks, so he's got three Turn to Dust in the sideboard. He really doesn't want to lose to the Lux Finite, so he's got two invert timelines in the sideboard. Um, yeah. Do I think Anton had a chance to win? I think so. Well, probably not actually. Anton's a good player, but I think his year's his worst matchup, he said, and Squirtle was always winning this event. So, the fact that Squirtle was gonna always meet him at some point in the bracket, I think is a problem, especially seeing as he had first seed, so he was guaranteed going first. So, but yeah, I do think Baron does have like its spots where it's like, yeah, like you said, the matchups it's good in, it does solo the matchup when you have it. But if you don't run into those matchups, then there's no reason for it, right? Kind of in the same line where you had these two invert timelines. Like if you didn't run into Lux, then there's no reason for these to be in his sideboard, and they're just dead slots. So, um, do you think is better decks for Nexus Knights? I mean, I would just say play whatever you're most comfortable on for sure. If you just want to play like what the best deck is, probably like Yi is what I'd recommend. As just like the baseline, but yeah, that's just my personal take on that one. Just playing something consistent is really what you want, right? So, uh, let's see that perfect. Yeah, we're one thing that we're seeing here is just like, we if you're a good player and you play it well, then you'll be able to top with whatever legends. So, what just based on, the legend that we saw topping here. Um, but yeah, since we were talking about the Lux Finite, I know a few people were questioning this because this was kind of the talk of the tournament a little bit. There was some confusion, I think, with people like knowing how this deck works and what its entire gimmick is, because if you don't understand it, it can be very confusing as this deck does not play Riftbound as we know it. Um, right? So, let me actually grab some water. I'll answer a couple questions, then I can show off the Lux Finite, as I'm sure people want to know what it's all about. And it did end up performing relatively well. I think there were three Luxes that ended up 10-3, which is good enough to be able to top 64, right? And get your invite. So it didn't quite perform well enough to, you know, win the event, but it's a very matchup driven deck. So just based on the matchups you get, it will determine whether or not you're able to win this. It doesn't have a lot of agency in a lot of matchups. If you play into like a Rengar or a Lilia, you just lose. So um, surprised that LeBlanc hasn't done well as she was seen to be going into set three. Yeah, I'm a little surprised too, but I think it's just the prevalence of purple is really what's holding her back. She has a lot of really good matchups. Like Azir is actually a pretty good matchup, and so on and so forth. So um, it's just like, yeah, if you run into the purple ducks, it's going to be a problem. Starcross is always going to be a problem. Best of Gin list from Jibs. Jibs is a great player. I played against him. Super nice guy. So I'd believe him on anything. And like he went 10-3, including a loss to me, which is like an auto loss matchup. So the fact that he was able to go 10-3 when he played against me is impressive. So if you want to play Jin, I would say just use his list. I trust him. You have two guys playing my list. Well, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I had one guy come up to me and said he played my list in the pre-RQ on Sunday, or whatever the event was, and he went 5-0. So I was very, very proud that someone else was able to use my list and get some success. It was very nice. So long as it's in the side events, I'm still getting my last best of set that exists here in Hartford. So don't bother contesting me on set. Just play something else. You're not getting the best of. But I like more sideboard slots. Yeah, I definitely would love more sideboard slots for the game. There are 40 legends that exist right now, and we have 8 sideboard slots. Like, come on. I think that's a little bit crazy. Um, how do I think it will sway Hartford results? I mean, I'd probably expect a lot more Yees if people are being results oriented, but I think what we're kind of noticing with Riftbound is just every tournament has its different meta, right? And just based on the popularity of the champion is the popularity of the legend is what we're gonna see people play. I think it's really difficult to predict because there's not really. It's not just like whatever the best deck is, people just swap to in Riftbound. I think this game is one that is very skill intensive and requires you to play your deck to the highest level, right? And so, um, yeah, well, people will just play what they're gonna play. So, especially given that tickets sold out for these very quickly, it's something that we've seen in the China events as well. Is that people like whatever wins the events is kind of random because it's literally a lottery as to who gets into the China events. So you can't really predict it. It's not always going to be the best players. It's not going to be like it is over here where you see Squirtle getting a repeat, Allen getting a repeat. You know, you see me with three tops, you see Diwali with three tops. Like we see the same players over here because we're all able to get into these events, but it's not as common in China. So, and then as a the event of the whole, like yeah, people just play whatever they want. So, um, if people are going for top 64, I expect Yi to be kind of the baseline deck for that. But yeah, thoughts on the Akali. Yeah, the only comment I'll say when it comes to early spoilers is that I don't. There's no until I have the context of the full set. I don't really tend to speculate. So yeah, I think it's cool. I'm very happy with all the legends that have been previewed. Like Zed, I think will be a super cool one too. So I'm happy with the flavor of set four. But for me and how I handle card games and I handle deck building is like there's no without the full context of what the set is. Even as cards are starting to get officially spoiled, I probably won't make too many comments on them outside of what my personal spoiler card is, obviously, that I get given at some point. Just because without all the context of what else is in there, like a lot of these decks can't exist. You know, this Luxfinite deck wasn't a deck until both Shadow's Call and Sacrifice existed. So, um, yeah, I can still play set at the skirmish level. Set will still be legal up until set 10, so until the end of 2027, set will still be playable. So we got a year and a half of set at anything but the RQ and above level. So, and even potentially at the regional level, if set ends up still being good, you can play it at regionals because there will be best ofs for regionals, but in theory, the pricing is worth more than anything else. So, yeah. How exactly does sideboard work? After you finish your game one, then you can just swap cards from your sideboard with your main deck. So it's like you have a 48 card deck, and then you get to play with 40 of them in whatever orientation that you choose. So, and then you do that for both games two and three. So yeah, so I can show this Luxfinite deck real quick. Is this not gonna? This is gonna be weird. Come on. Okay. I can dox my personal email address. Spam me all you'll want. Um, so this is the list that's it's not probably not 100% updated. There's a few different win conditions that this deck can run. The essential premise of this Lux deck, for those who have not seen it yet, as just my current topic, is you want to draw your entire deck, and then once you do, you have various infinite combos that you can perform in order to win the game. So typically it's able to do this on turn 5 at the earliest, and then turn 6, if it ever gets to turn 6, is guaranteed. Turn 5, it's able to do it a lot of the time. And the deck is built around the idea of using the battlefields in order to stall. There are some other variations that people have been testing with like sprite bursts as a way to potentially stall out points as well. I think Trevor might have been playing Wages of Pain, I want to say. I think he had like 2 copies of Wages of Pain in his list. So there's lots of different ways that you can get to the point. I think this is like the most streamlined version, just to kind of show we can show how this deck ends up operating. Just on like a basic thing. So essentially all that you're doing is just drawing some cards. So the way they'll always operate it is like assuming your opponent does the best thing possible, which turn 1, nobody's able to score consistently. Turns 2 and beyond, however, they're going to score 2 points every turn. So this is our turn 2. So their turn, they'll score 2 points. You get to go to your turn. You get to tap 2 for a Shadow's Call on the Watchful Sentry that draws 2. And then get to play this Progress Day because we're Lux. This draws 5. And then the Sentry will die to draw 1. So now our opponent will get an additional turn. So they'll score to 4 points. We get to go to our turn again. We can play, honestly, whatever we want. We can go for a bird. We can go for another draw 2. And all that you're trying to do whenever you're playing with this deck is to just draw your deck as quickly as possible. And you want to essentially do it with as much ramp as possible. So you'll often find yourself in spots like this where, actually, I guess I have the bird, so I don't even need to. So just draw some cards. Sunpork's maps, your opponent's always going to be scoring 2 points, which means this card's always going to draw you 2 cards. So our opponent scores a 6 here. And honestly, I could potentially even... it's probably not worth going off at a turn or any. If I wanted to, it'd be possible to go off from this spot, but there's not really a reason to. So I can sack the bird, go here to this amount of points, draw, tap the Lux, draw. Just because I think a lot of people have said that they don't see how it ends up being as consistent, but it really does just come down to, like I said, this is showing a game where theoretically my opponent is scoring, or my opponent in quotation marks is scoring 2 points every single turn, right? So once you get to this point, this is where I can kind of slow down. So they would score to 8 points here, and this is the turn where you need to go off. The way that you do that is using echoes. So echo comes out, and you then use sacrifice. The way that this game works is that energy floats until the end of turn, so you can pay the energy. This will float 6 energy for us, and then the sacrifice will resolve, which will kill the echo. This will untap all of our runes. Then the sacrifice will resolve. The echo goes to the bottom. And then you draw 2. And then you kind of just do this to draw your whole deck. Then once you get to the points where you've drawn your whole deck, then there's a lot of ways to do the combo. So we can just shortcut all this. Essentially what you're going to try and do once you've drawn your entire deck is set up a stack with Forge of the Future. Where are my forges? So this card allows you to recycle 4 cards from the trash at once. The cards that you're always going to cycle are Shadow's Call, Sacrifice, and Forge of the Future. It can't recycle itself, notably, so I guess in this instance I just would have to grab some random card. We'll grab a Retreat. Then the loop is that you play Echo. You want to do this with max runes. There's a more complicated loop that works with double sacrifice, but this is the simple one. So whenever you're in this situation, the Forge also makes you a token, so you can just play a Retreat, which will ramp you the additional rune that you need to. Then once you're at 12 runes, and you're in this spot, then you can play the Sacrifice on the Echo, which will untap all your runes and draw 2. Notably, the Echo recycles itself, and then you can play the Shadow's Call, which with all the extra energy that we're floating to draw the additional 2, and then this is where the loop kind of starts, once you get to this point. So you play the Forge of the Future. This costs 2. We sack this to recycle a Forge of the Future, a Sacrifice, and a Shadow's Call. Then from there, we play the Echo. We play the Sacrifice. Well, it costs a power, but the Sacrifice always re-ramps the power, so it doesn't matter. And then this will draw 2, and then the Echo will go to the bottom, and then you will play the... I don't have another Shadow's Call in hand. Well, usually you'll have multiple Shadow's Calls in your hand once you set this up, but in order to facilitate this loop. But this generates infinite energy because the cards that you're casting is, it's 2 energy for the Forge, 1 for the Sacrifice, 2 for the Shadow's Call, and then 5 for the Echo, so that costs you 10 energy, and you have 11 runes, so you can... The way that Riftbound works is if you have an infinite loop, then you can declare an infinite loop. So you can do that to produce an infinite amount of energy once you demonstrated this loop. And then after that, you can do a different loop with Lecturing Yordle plus For the Future plus Retreat in order to generate infinite power. Because once you have infinite energy, then everything is free, right? So we can do it from the same spot where we play the Forge of the Future. We're going to recycle a Forge of the Future, a Retreat, and a Shadow's Call. Then we will retreat our Yordle, play the Yordle, which will draw a card, and then now we Shadow's Call in order to grab the Retreat and the Shadow's Call. So then this is another infinite loop that generates you infinite power by just floating the power and then playing the Retreat to do so. After which you will play the Fiora, you'll play the where is it? The Rally of the Troops, This will make it so that a unit enters the battlefield buffed. You then accelerate uh, the echo onto a battlefield. You, I guess, technically score your point, but then you play Renata to the battlefield. It becomes buffed because of the rally of the troops, so it will trigger Fiora, which will allow it to enter ready. You can then just activate the ability because we have infinite power and infinite energy to score a point, and then you just do the retreat loop, similar to the one that we did before, to infinitely retreat or replay this Renata over, and then you score 9 points in one turn. And that is the loop. Is entirely tournament legal. Everything is above board. You just have to be able to perform these actions and explain it to your opponent, and perform it at a relatively quick pace. I will say that it's like, in terms of combos, I think it is one of the simpler ones to be able to do. Just because once you've like established the loop once, you can just say, I do this a billion times, I have a billion energy floating. So yeah. Oh, camera takes space. Oh, sorry about that. I should have fixed that. You were totally right. Sorry, I was kind of in the zone. But hopefully I didn't resize it for this. My bad. Would I recommend you bringing this to a Nexus night? Not unless you're a degenerate, just because it is very annoying to explain to people. So, but yeah, so yeah. But this is the entire combo. There's a few different win conditions that you can do, just because I've seen people asking. One that you can do instead of doing all the luck stuff is you can play Ash and do basically you exile your opponent's entire hand with Ash. You play Sprite Burst to get infinite sprites on each side of the battlefield, and then you play Ruination to blow up their entire board. So you leave them with nothing in play. You have infinite sprites plus infinite 1/1s off of the Forge of the Future, and you exile their entire hand, and then you just say go. And then your opponent's just going to end up having to pass back and forth infinitely. Right? So that's one way that you can do it too. This is like the more I win immediately sort of win condition, so that's why this is the one that I showed off. But once you get to the point where you have infinite energy and infinite power, you can choose whatever win condition you want, really. I think Forge of the Future will be banned because of this. I think there are a lot of cards like Forge of the Future that create these theoretical infinites that are a problem, just because of the way Riftbound works, right? This was done under the theory that my opponent scored 2 points every single turn, that they were able to score points. And because this isn't game like other games, you can theoretically die much quicker. In Riftbound, you're kind of hard capped to only be able to win within a certain amount of time, right? Because you can only ever score 2 points a turn. So if a deck is ever able to be consistent enough that it's able to perform this infinite combo, just because it'll always be available in this color combination so long as these cards exist. Lux doesn't actually do anything in this deck, with the exception of having a good Chosen Champ for it. And then, but if you look at our deck, the only spells that we actually have that trigger Lux's ability is Progress Day. So we're at most drawing 3 cards. So you could play this out of like LeBlanc, or you could play it out of Victor, or you could play it out of Renata if you really wanted to. But yeah, this is a good representation of the deck because you ignore the audience the entire time. I'm sorry. I went through it as quickly as I wanted to. I'm back to reading the chat. Sometimes I get in the zone. Plus, I'm also very, very tired. I have been traveling for like 15 hours and then immediately got back home and started the stream for y'all. But yeah, back to Q&A now that I was able to show that off. So for those that are curious, here's your highlight reel. I see Prisma in the chat. Yeah, glad you got home safe. Lux Infinites don't use Runoff Hero anymore, only Ash, Sprite Burst, and a removal spell. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Just because whenever you have like an infinite deck like this, you want your cards that are a part of the infinite to be doing something as well. So Sprite Burst is a card that actually does something in the early to mid game, as it can potentially stall your opponent off of points. So yeah, I think that doing the hand loop plus Sprite Burst one that I mentioned is a lot better than doing this one. But in theory, you could like sideboard this if you're like afraid of going to time or something like that, not being able to win in time. So is the Lux deck good for the game? My personal opinion is no. There's like a theory when it comes to card games where if you have combo decks that are bad or good for the game, and combo decks that are good are like terrible for the game, right? So there was one that we saw in Sydney in round one that was like a terrible Dragonstorm loop deck, right? That was like playing blood. Eventually, it like got to infinite energy and infinite power, very similar to this the way that this one does, and then it was playing Blood Fury over and over to play every card from their opponent's deck, and then I think eventually decking them out or something like that. So that deck was terrible, and I think that's very good for the game because it's just something that somebody is able to like play and they get it off one in a million times and they still lose the match, but they got to do their for fun combo, right? And I think that those are the types of players that will continue to play Riftbound forever because of the one time they were able to do their super cute combo. Um, but when it comes to a deck that is actually good like this, you can see that literally the deck is built with very little to no interaction. The whole point is that I pretend my opponent doesn't exist. I play solitaire, and either I kill you or you kill me, and we just figure it out. So obviously, this sort of style is very bad for the game. Should it ever be a viable option? So um, if the Lux that was on stream made the Renata loop, he probably would have won that match since it took an extra like 5 minutes for him to win after he went infinite. Yeah, that's part of the value of it is there is like the theoretically the other version is always going to be better, but this version does have its merits because it does just immediately win rather than letting your opponent potentially stall out. Like you have to be very cognizant of the clock if you're going to play the correct version in quotation marks to make sure that you're playing quickly and your opponent is also playing quickly. Otherwise, they for sure can just stall you out. Has Riftbound scored me any hot dates yet? No comment. You can conquer my battlefield anytime. Oh, okay. Well, that one was spicy here. Thank you. Combo decks are either too good and dominant or not good enough. They just waste time. Yeah, exactly. I think that's my take on combo in general. I'm not a big fan of it just because it tends to be very uninteractive most of the time. So just based on, the definition of combo. So yeah, that's Echo's the big elephant in the room. There's a lot of cards that you could ban from it. Literally, if it didn't have access to Shadow's Call, then the basic loop wouldn't work. Granted, there is a loop with double sacrifice, double echo that also works, so you couldn't just ban Shadow's Call. But sacrifice, echo, and Forge of the Future is the combo that is really causing all this. So whichever of these cards that they want to hit, they in theory could. I think it's just something that they didn't really estimate well, the ability to like deck yourself and then all these recycle cards just become the ability to regrow anything out of your grave. So yeah, it is just a nonsense deck, but it did do very well. I think there were three of them that went 10-3, so it is something to at least keep in mind. But I do think it's a kind of difficult deck to pilot. You have to understand all the loops and how to get through an entire tournament in order to do this. So this isn't something I would really fear if you're showing up to an RQ or something like that. It's just something that is worth understanding if you play against it, what to do, which is basically score as quickly as you can, kill their Lux Crown Guard if they play it to try and slow them down, and then past that, if you defy their draw spells and call it a day, right? So. What made me want to play Set? I played Set in Set 1 just because I thought it was a cool deck that was really good into Kaisa, and it pretty much was. It wasn't like an auto win into Kaisa, but you were favored into Kaisa, which was all that I was really looking to and do in Set 1 because everyone was playing Kaisa. So, uh, yeah, that was basically it. Echo needs to go. Infinite's the same thing with different cards. I see. If it also uses Echo, then yeah, I think that Echo card is a problem. These are the kinds of decks that are hard to find in dev, but the community eventually figures it out. Yeah, exactly. I don't blame the devs for this necessarily. I think there are some cards that exist like Forge of the Future that are like bound to eventually cause some problems just based on the way Riftbound works. Vi is the other problem child from set one that creates a lot of these infinites back when Detonate was still a thing. Um, and then it does actually have some infinites with Dragonstorm right now. So I think these cards that are just able to infinitely recycle things is something they need to keep a little bit more in check, as these are the real problems. But yeah, hopefully that's something. It's something that we haven't seen past set one. So I think these were just like a few cards that got printed in set one, and obviously we won't see moving forward. So. Is the meta in a good and healthy spot overall after seeing the results of this RQ? Yeah, I mean, I would say the meta is in a fantastic spot. I think there are a few outliers of decks that definitely probably should be tuned. Namely, these top three decks are still outliers in my mind in terms of what their percentages are into the field. They're just a little bit too good. So I would love to see a little bit of tuning on them, just based on like we can go just off the top 25% conversion here. Basically, has my take on it. Um, even decks like Draven and Sivir are having crazy overperformance. Draven is actually just randomly like the least popular legend that's just still absolutely a crazy deck. This deck is still cracked, so it just hasn't had much of a play rate. So, um, but yeah, it's I do think E is very overtuned right now. Um, this deck's like 60% win rate is crazy, with it being also I think the most popular deck. Um, like that is way higher than any deck realistically should have. But outside of that, I mean, I think all of this is within like the realm of if we're at 55% to 50% on the majority of these decks, like yeah, that's relatively healthy, and we're able to see some of these outliers of people playing some of these quote unquote bad decks and still doing well with it. So, um, yeah, Mastery's either very high, or very low. Yeah, I mean, it does have like a couple of bad matchups. I think Sever and LeBlanc are really its only two bad matchups that exist. I don't know why this spreadsheet keeps doing this. Um, but everything else it has a very good matchup into, which is I haven't touched anything. It's moving on its own. The spreadsheet is haunted. Everything but specifically Hook LeBlanc too. I'm pretty sure regular Yi like absolutely demolishes non-Hook LeBlanc, but Hook LeBlanc is it. Yi doesn't put in enough pressure on them, I think, and eventually they're just able to do their thing. So, are you sure there's a rule that says once you've showed the loop, your opponent has to admit you can do it? And what counters do you see to this combo? Yes, as the rules stated, basically, once you've determined that you have a loop and you've shown that the loop does what you said it does, then you can just declare how many times that you want to do the loop, and it happens that many times. Those are just the rules of the game. My voice is incredibly soothing. Oh, thank you. I do like my voice. I think it's got the sultriness that a lot of people look for. I can do the ASMR streams for you old chats. Lull you to sleep with my voice. These are my personal matrix. This is a spreadsheet that one of our community members made. That this is just all of the results from Utrecht. So the most recent RQ tournament, the 2,000 person event that I got top four at. This is the results for that. So appreciate the congrats, Zach. Thank you, thank you. I was messing with Draven and seemed pretty decent with a decent solid matchup spread. I don't know how much he can mitigate Aurora. The only thing they can really do is just like Starcross Max, which if you're in purple, realistically, you should probably be Starcross Maxing anyways. So let's see if they have they posted best of deck lists yet. Let me see if they have all that anywhere. See this one on Rift Mana. See if this works. I do not know these people, but if it is correct, play inspired me to play non-meta and when you first experience Ringer. Dude, that's awesome. I always love to see people playing their favorite stuff. I think it's just a better way to play the game. So. And sometimes you will struggle. But at the end of the day, the only reason why these decks are off meta in quotation marks is because they have bad matchups somewhere. The only reason that this deck is off meta in quotation marks is because it has bad matchups somewhere. So if you just don't play against your bad matchups, then hey, you're good. The only reason that Yi is meta is because it doesn't have any bad matchups. Its worst matchups are like 40-60s, which is pretty acceptable in terms of TCGs. So. I think Vex Apathetic needs a ban, or is it fine? I think Vex Apathetic does need a ban at some point. I don't like cards like that. I think they're fundamentally flawed whenever you design a card that just completely shuts down certain strategies for very little cost. When you make the card that's so good that it's just main deckable, this should be a card that like probably should have cost a power in order for it to be acceptable. So let's see if I can control F Draven. No deck specified. Okay, thank you for wasting my time, Rift Mana. LeBlanc hasn't been getting good results recently. Do you think she's not as strong as she was perceived? Yeah, I think she just has she struggles into the meta. She struggles into all these purple decks. So she's very good into the non-purple decks. If you don't play against Kha'Zix, Annie, Diana, then you're nice. But unfortunately, those decks are ones that you're very likely to run into at some point. So long as that's the case, like LeBlanc is gonna struggle for sure. And I don't think there's any other version of LeBlanc that has a better shot into that. I mean, I think if you want to beat Diana specifically, you can maybe play some deck that's like cold maxing, and maybe that'd be good enough. But even then, they just have so many of these like little twos that prevent the colds from going off. Maybe combining some coals with like Karthus plus the shark can make something happen. Um, let's see. Do you see the comments coming out from an L3 judge saying you don't have to pay the cost of Emperor dice to actually return the unit to your hand? According to them, it's worded this way. I have not heard that one. If so, that would be very weird. I think one thing that we've seen, you may pay one in return. Yeah, I don't think it works that way. One thing that we've seen from the specific wording on cards is that some of the wording was not consistent in sets 1 and 2, and so far Riot's intention with this is to change the rules to make the card work the way that it is supposed to, right? With like the functional rules errata that we've seen on all these cards. So if it was ever to a point where this card was worded in such a way that they would make it so that you didn't have to pay the one in order to return the unit, then it would they would just errata it to change the wording to be it. So I would say whenever you have cards like these, just act in the spirit of the card itself, rather than the wording. It's obvious what Riot intended. They intended you to have to pay one and return a unit in order to get the effect, right? So the fact that Vex says deflect on top of it's wild. Yes, I think it's a very. I don't like card design like that. That just shuts down entire strategies. I think play should be a little bit more nuanced than that, than rather than just me put this card in and oops, I win. So Rift Yummies has the list. Is that the Yummies Dash Palace? Let's see. Utrecht. See if this works. Maybe. Oh, nice. Okay. They have like an image that can make this pretty now. Still, this is cool. They have like all the data on all this sort of stuff. So, notably no Starcross. So I'm guessing, yeah, only 2 Starcross out of the board. I don't know if that's correct, but maybe they really get the best of. So, good on them. What about this one? This one had the 2 Starcross in the main. I like that a little bit more. Also, a random Baron Nashor. Crazy. You can attempt to pay for it, which includes bouncing in it, but you can't pay one, and so you don't do it. Instead, you cannot outpay, and then you can bounce and get a Sand Soldier. Huh. That's very weird. Could I do your favor and not play Set at Hartford? I will tell you right now I'm playing Set at Hartford, so if you're chasing the best of, I would not recommend it. But anything can happen. It's a card game, I suppose. Even I can bomb an event. It can happen if you really want to go for it. It's just like the same people that like play Annie when Priz is around. Like, what are we doing here? Are we just all fooling ourselves, or what's up? But people are like they are specialists and such, so I'm sure people enjoy playing their decks. You have any new color combinations of Vendetta? I think the color combination of Chaos Order will be very degenerate, not only because of the Infinite, but also because of Baited Hook Nocturne. I think both of those things are going to be kind of gross, so um, yeah, I don't know exactly how we're gonna handle all that sort of stuff. So, you think friendship spells should get +1 for each every tag rather than a max +4 if against the odds? Yeah, I mean, friendship's a terrible card, so they could have made this card much better than it is. It's got cute artwork though, so um, but yes, I think that they definitely could have been a little bit better. I think they get a little bit worried about cards like this that are scaling, but yeah, they probably didn't need to be so. They could have like maybe should have given +1 initially or something like that. But then it would just be a strictly better on guard if you play bird, cats, dogs, and burrows. But for Ivern support, like we could have done better than this. I think about Regin and Draven. I think there's like two variations they can play with the Draven. Um, Basically, if you're playing the Murder Artist version, then you're gonna want to play cards like Falling Star and Rebuke and Starcross that are a little bit more on the power hungry side. Your spinning axes. You want to maximize the ability to play Jin, whereas in the other variations, you're not playing these cards like Falling. I guess you're still playing a couple of Falling Star because that card's broken, but you're not playing Rebukes. You're not playing Starcross because they're a little bit too power hungry. You're going. Oh, I guess this guy was playing Jins too, so I don't like this list as much. I know that technically you got the best of, but Spugna's list is better. But in my opinion, you either want to be all in on the Jin and then build your deck around that, or you want to not mess with the Jin and then just go with like more Vexes and rely on that. So, how would Baited Hook Nocturne work? You just play Nocturne and one from Hook. Yeah, you just get to play the Nocturne for free off of the Baited Hook. It's the same way as anything else. So you play the Nocturne and something else. So it just always gives you a 4 might unit around to be able to do it. Do you think there's any hope for Leona? No, unfortunately not. I've thought about what I'll play after set best of rotates out. No, I do not know what I'll play after set rotates out, but we'll see. It'll be a completely new format, so I'll just determine what legend I like the look of the most and go from there. Um, was the some of the cards that ended up surprising me based on my first impression? That's an easy one. Uh, One of the best cards in the set is Feyfolk. I underestimated this card. This card like a 10. This card is so broken. This card should not exist. In terms of like cards that need to get banned, this is like up at the top. This card is a monster. The things that it does to people, it should not be allowed to do. What's the worst legend? Ivern. Ivern is the worst legend. This poor little guy. He's just a little friend, but he is by far the worst legend. I think he's holding Lilia back so much outside of Vex. Is that single card the only thing that's holding her back from being able to complete? Yes. The issue when you have a deck like Lilia is that when it's completely shut down a card that's like one of the most popular cards in the meta, it's just impossible for you to play the game. And unless you get a particularly good answer to Purple Vex, which right now they're like on unchecked power is your best answer, but this deck is like so aggressive and so built on the idea of needing to be aggressive in the early game that when you just get completely shut down by one card, it's obviously a problem. So yeah. Playing Ivern set for Prismat. Okay. If you play Ivern, then I'll let you pick some butt leader for me to play. Hopefully one that's got a little bit higher value than Ivern. But if you day two with Ivern, I'll give you a firm handshake. We can get the necklace of Iverns to go with the necklace of Annie's. Ivern is in fact worse than Renata because in Renata you could just play the infinite combo if you want, and the infinite combo has to be better than Ivern. That's the Ivern deck just doesn't do anything. It's just a bunch of cute little friends. Um, Ivern Hook. You know what? Give it a shot. Listen, I don't want it to be the case. We wanted Ivern to be good. I'm just saying how it is. Garen's not even the worst legend anymore because like Aurora's not that bad. He's Iron made day two in Utrecht. Okay, let's see this. Y'all are claiming. Are there any legends that still have not day two'd? Do we know? I'm sure there has to be some legend that still hasn't day two'd, right? Or is every legend day two'd? Wrong. Find legend. All right. Oh wow, a 9 forward. That's crazy. What did he play against? Okay, so he lost to an Azir. He 2-0'd an Aurelia. Oh my god. He lost to a LeBlanc, then he beat Leona. He 2-1 Aurelia, 2-1 to Lilia, and he somehow beaten Azir. I don't know. Maybe this guy's just a god. He's just out here crushing Yees and Aurelias. This guy's just a god. Is there some crazy tech in here? No, he's just on all the iron stuff. The trusty ram hounds, of course. Azir sovereigns because it's a bird. Yeah, yeah. This guy's just a god. I don't know what to tell you. Marshall's the iron guy. Yeah. Is infinite combo the Aurora of Order mine? No, I think the infinite combos. It's not that big of a deal. I think it's annoying, but like if you really want to beat it, you can play Divine Judgment or you can play Invert Timelines, and that'll probably be enough. So, is there any hope for Ari and Lucian to become competitive? Ari, no. Lucian was competitive in set two, but now it's just kind of in a bad spot because of all the gear hate that people are just inherently playing because of Aurora and Azir and stuff like that. So, I think that's really its biggest issue. So, yeah, what's up, Leo? Good to see everyone. I think it plays similar to Mono Yellow Rek'Sai. Yeah, it's just Mono Yellow Rek'Sai, but you don't have like the battering rams and stuff to get large enough mites. So, I mean, apparently the deck's good enough to go 9-4. So, you know, it is what it is. Got third with LeBlanc. That's awesome. I think those are the things that are always nice when you're making your own build and making it work for you. Always glad to hear it. But yeah, so that was this tournament. I don't think there's. I mean, I do think this was overall a really cool event to just see how many different legends we ended up having here. A really diverse field. If you are just looking for your top, then I would recommend just playing Yi. Very simple and obviously straight to the point, is able to do the thing. So I'm taking Hartford. I hope that's the case. I know you make set S tier, Colin, but would you ever play S tier Legend at a regional? Yeah, I'm open to it, especially at the regional. I think whenever the regional season comes around, I'm gonna play whatever I think has the best odds for me to win the event. There will still be best of pricing for the regionals, but suppose I would assume that there will be a higher level of pricing that makes it worth it. The big thing for the RQs is that there isn't much in terms of pricing outside of the best ofs, right? That's where the majority of the pricing is. When it comes to just cash, if you get second place, you get $3,000, and then a top eight mat, which I have over here, that is not worth very much. I think it's still in my bag. I haven't even bothered pulling this thing out. I got all my extra Vex mats. You get one of these. But yeah, I've got my top eight mat here, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. My camera is kind of messing it up, but you know, in terms of like actual monetary value, there's not much to it. So yeah, I always recommend if you're going for best potential value to just go for whatever best of you think is your best, haha. Or if you want your regional invite, then yeah, just play whatever the top tier decks you're comfortable on between like Diana or Yi or Aurelia or even LeBlanc. Oh, here's the best of LeBlanc. I'm curious, are they hooking? Yep, they're hooking. So this is basically our list. They just played a second Watcher instead of and a third Blade. So yep, it looks like again LeBlanc is just it's just a hook deck. This is the only real way to play it, at least over in the States. It's three uh, back to back to back best of LeBlancs, all using my list. So this is what I will always recommend people to do if they want to be playing LeBlanc. So if I'm solely looking to win, would I play Yi? I don't know what I would play if I was solely looking to win, to be honest. Maybe. I would honestly just play Azir and just go for I just play Squirtle's decklist. This guy's literally God, so I would never question him if I was trying to win. I have a question. Do you know if the new mechanic empowers temporary or permanent? What do I think? I would assume permanent, but I won't speculate too much on the set 4 stuff until it all gets officially spoiled. Because I'm sure a lot of it will be like other cards do that effect. It won't just be the legend ability based on the card that we saw. So, but yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's 3 mana do nothing, which would be crazy, crazy poor. I mean, LeBlanc isn't like let's be real, guys. It's not like LeBlanc is weak. It's still got 11th place here. Like it's still a good deck. It's just not S tier compared to the Yees of the world. The Yees, the Dianas, the Azirs. It's still like a top 10 deck. It's not like yeah, it's definitely not a bad deck. So have you talked about the Lux deck at all? I did a if you go back in the VOD at some point, Gangly, I did a primer on what the Lux Finite is. My take on it is that it's probably unhealthy for the game in general. But it's a very matchup dependent thing where it's just like either your opponent has all the defies and the chops to beat it, or uh, it doesn't. If you don't have like the hard bargains and the defies, and you aren't able to kill them quick enough, then yeah, this deck will cook you. So, what's a legend I wish was more viable? Ooh, that's kind of fun. Um, I don't actually know. I don't have any like pet decks or anything that's a favorite. Maybe Ivern, just because I think it's cute. Those are like the types of deck that get people into the game just because they have to play with their cute cats and stuff. So I was kind of hopeful that Ivern would actually be relatively good. Be a new Pike list. No, that's more of a Rossum thing. He's more of the Pike guy than I am, but I'm sure our Pike guy will be updated to whatever he thinks is the best of the time. How often do I play locals? When I play locals, do I play off meta decks? No, I basically never play locals. I just don't have time. I would love to and hang out with the community, but I don't have time. I play in the skirmishes, and that's really about it. But that's just I need my buys. And I usually just play set. I played like Miracle Draven once or twice and felt really bad, but I always just give people to play Matt in the card whenever at the event. I just go for the buy, which no one in my locals ends up needing them from the events anyways. So yeah. Thoughts on Vex? I mean, Vex's just like issue is that if as soon as you break her, she just loses, right? And she just has to play so many bad cards. I think Vex is a fine deck. It's still like bottom of A. It's probably like A to B. Maybe it's more of a B tier deck, but yeah, it's a whole deck that doesn't it needs to win the die roll and it needs a lot of things for it to go its way. So um oh, Ari. Yeah, I think Ari would be a good one as a more viable legend too. I don't necessarily like her playstyle because hold decks can be a little bit toxic in the game when they're too good, but I think Ari is a good balance of a hold deck. It's just you want like hold decks kind of to be built like Vex where you can theoretically chip away at it. I think is really the only way to make hold decks viable in the game. So I wear a Yi that swaps units. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily possible. Just because there's too many units that mid-range Yi wants, and there's also just not that much of a reason for you to swap between Aurora and non-Aurora when it comes to Yi. Whenever you comes to transformational sideboards, there has to be some reason why you need to transform, and I don't think that Yi is in a position where it necessarily needs to be Aurora in certain matchups and regular mid range and others. So Miss me? I'm here. Don't write me off. I still exist. Bewitching Spirit and Pike. It's good in some matchups, too slow in others. I mean, it's literally a combination of both. One thing I always talk about in card games is just like a contextual thing that I think is important is that cards are only as good as the deck that you're playing against, right? If you're playing against a deck that's very slow and doesn't deal great with card advantage, then I mean that card a card like Bewitching Spirit getting bounced over and over will obviously win you the game. But if you play into like a Rek'Sai or something that has infinite card advantage and is very aggressive, then playing a 3 energy for a 2 might is not going to ever work for you. So I'm not a Fiora fan, but that's just a me thing. I think it's something that we're gonna work on as we get into set 4. We'll work on some fundamental videos and get some basic stuff out there for people. I'm not too sure about other ones that exist that I could recommend right now, but I know it's something that we're planning on working on the next few weeks. Now that we actually have some downtime after this next RQ, it's just been so hectic going from one event to the next to the next. I don't think I've ever had 2 weekends in a row that I've been staying in the same place for God, what feels like 4 or 5 months now at this point. So, um, do I recommend you start with Set? I mean, I think Set is it's a cool deck. It's what do you play in Magic? I guess would be my question. It's very much so a deck that I wouldn't recommend. I think it's one of the hardest decks that is in the game, just because it's very much so predictive based on what your opponent is doing. The thing about the Set deck is it's just all about knowing exactly what my opponent's going to be doing next turn, and less. It's entirely reactive and not very proactive most of the time. So I do think it is a very cool deck if people like it. I think my Set deck is obviously fantastic. I put some good work into it, but it is a very difficult deck to play because it's one that you have to know. You have to be playing the game both for yourself and your opponent in order to make this deck work at the highest level. But I've seen some people do relatively well with it otherwise. So if you like the look of the deck and you think it's a cool one, then yeah, give it a shot. Iron Legacy. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you like combo, there's the Lux deck. If you like controlling decks, I'd probably recommend Diana. This is like kind of a mid-range, almost Jundi style of deck. Um, if you like aggressive decks, there's like, Rek'Sai or Azir is also very good. So, what do you think Vi needs? A miracle. I mean, the other two leader legend abilities are just so much better than Vi. They have better legend abilities and better chosen champions, and not better Sig. Vi's Sig is okay, but yeah, the legend ability is the biggest thing, and chosen champ is those are the two things that start and play. So the fact that she's behind both the other legends is a problem. How important is the pre-regional tournament in an RQ? The first buy helps a decent amount. It's mostly for tiebreakers because it helps your tiebreakers. So if you ever get into a tiebreaker thing, the end, that's more what it helps. So, but typically you should be winning the first round anyways if you're gonna have a deep round at all. So, yeah, I don't think it helps that much in terms of just overall score. The way you put Set made it look like Monastery far less and very efficient, but the other battlefields weren't nearly as valuable. Yeah, I mean, it's the other Grove is definitely the weakest. There's like a theoretical world in which I'd swap this out just because you aren't really getting to use it that much. I could see like making it like amateur recital or something like that. Just because that way you get hurt less when your opponent's holding the Grove. Monastery is obviously broken, and then Veli is also very good. Just being able to go into it and then immediately buff something is really strong. So, but cool. I've been going for about 2.5 hours, so I'll probably call it here in a bit. If anyone has any last second questions, I know this has just kind of become a Q&A stream, but that's uh that's how these things end up going. Anytime I can grab my Set best of, but yeah, I've been traveling for like 16 hours or something like that. Just got home and immediately turned on the stream. So, any thoughts on the color reveal? Yeah, I talked about it a little bit. I think it's cool. I think Set 4 is going to be awesome. And once we have some more context as what everything is in Set 4, then we'll definitely be talking about it. But yeah, Kali was a champion that I was interested in before, and even after that, it is one that I'm still interested in. So just because I think he's a cool one. Yeah, we got the newest set to the family. I don't know if the camera's gonna show it. Oh, I only get to see portions of him, I guess. So here's the newest one that's added to the collection. So can go back in this box. Ever play test with Nidalee in the set deck? I didn't ever really try it. It just didn't work. It didn't do exactly what I wanted it to. I just wasn't looking for a 3 for 4 like that. Um, Game plan in the meta deck in a few words. Develop your board, get set up, and then start contesting afterwards. You always want to make sure that you have like your big guy with the buff and some amount of energy up typically in order to start contesting. And then remember that you're a hold deck so you can fall behind in points, especially into Yi. It's not as big of a deal if you fall behind on points because you can hold them out with spells like Punch First and Call the Glory and all that. Standing guide in the works. No, we've kind of put a pause on all the guides for now. We're going to be going really hard on guides in set 4. But we're trying to improve our Discord, which for everyone who isn't aware, we do have our private Discord through the Metafy. For $20, you guys can ping me all these questions any single time. I'm always active, and people are allowed to ping me anytime they want in there for any questions that they may have. And same with everybody on Team Challenger. We're trying on doing more streams and stuff like that as more or a regular thing for playtesting, as well as updating and creating more fundamental guides that we're planning on doing through all that sort of stuff. So to really add some more value here, now that we actually have some downtime, we've just kind of struggled keeping up with the content while also going to all these events has been like close to impossible. Even for a team of our size, there's just so much to do when there's just been so many events. So, but yeah, so for those who are interested, we have that as an option. It's the biggest Discord by far. We got over 1,000 people that are a part of our Discord, so it's incredible. So I think they should showcase 2v2 at some point. I think it is a 2v2 is a cool format. They have the Sunday 2v2, but right now the format is really bad because it's just apparently it's all Yi Yasuo is the combination. You just play Yi Yasuo and all you do is Yi Yasuo. So try the King of the Draws if you have 5+ might. Maybe. I just mostly the way that this set deck does, it doesn't really do anything with like these middling might guys most of the time. I just don't have infinite energy to just be casting that guy, so it's something I could try in the future, or I would if it wasn't for the fact that the last event for set is this weekend, sadly. So uh, after that, I'll probably shelve this guy. Maybe if I do well with it again, I'll just like get like a frame for this deck list and put all the cards in there or something. So I hate the camel and set at least, but it's good in Yi. Camel is just it doesn't get to the right might break points in set, so but cool. I think I'm mostly caught up. As we will be doing this again on Wednesday, I'm gonna try and do a twice a week stream for everybody, just because it seems to be something people are enjoying, and I think we're gonna try and do a couple of different things. Maybe on Wednesday we'll do like a podcast style or something, but we'll see. We have I know we have the boys that are at Alex's place right now, currently trapped in his basement. So send your prayers to Daniel and Anton, who are stuck with Alex for a few days before Hartford. But yeah, appreciate everybody coming out. We will be doing this a lot more often, so look forward to that. Until next time, everyone have a good night, and I'm gonna go pass out.